Together, we will make America great again.
RPN is not responsible for the views, actions, statements, or opinions of its guests, advertisers, or even its viewers. The information contained in this program is not to be confused with medical or legal advice. An appearance on this platform is not necessarily an endorsement, but as always, we encourage you to do your own research. Enjoy the show. Good evening, everyone. And of course, welcome back. Yes, to another very exciting episode of Red Pill News Live. Thank you so much for joining us. We've got a lot to talk about today. Obviously, we're going to be talking about Ilhan Omar finally getting some word on justice for her. The House is not happy with the Senate. The Senate has ended the shutdown, sort of. It's way more complicated than that, and it's really scummy. I can't wait to talk about that. Also, President Trump has unilaterally, single-handedly ended the shutdown of TSA. Looks like John Cornyn is definitely going to win his runoff. Minnesota is suing the Trump administration. And plenty of people are getting called out for being totally incompetent. They have no right being in government. Also, we have another attack at a U.S. military base. This happened a couple of days ago. Can't believe it's not bigger news, but we are going to talk about it. And, of course, many other such things. So, do me a favor if you hadn't yet. Hit that like button, hit the thumbs up, hit the red pill. Do whatever it is you do on the platform you're watching on. And get ready, because you're about to sit back, relax, and grab your popcorn so we can get into it right about now. All right, welcome back, welcome back. Yes, my friends, this is Red Pill News. My name is Zak Paine, and you're listening to, watching my channel, Red Pill 78. Hope you guys are having a great day. This is the end of the week. We have so much to get through. And then, of course, I will be gone Saturday and Sunday. You might see me publishing some shorts. I have been publishing shorts. Rumble sent me a message, and they said that they will give me a bonus if I publish shorts. And so I said, hey, what other reason would I need but to try to get some new information out? Now, I can also take those shorts and I can put them on other platforms. I haven't done that yet. It's really a ton of work to go through 3 hours of videos every single day and try to find just a 60 to 90 second clip. But do me a favor, if you guys see something that you want me to clip from my videos, like if I rant about something and you think that it's worthy, then you can send me an email. Also, I hope that you had an opportunity to watch the episode yesterday. Salty Legion showed up at the end of the show and was like, you said you weren't doing a show today. And I was like, no, buddy, that was 2 days ago. I definitely didn't do a show the day before, but here we are. We've got one more show this week, and then I will be gone for the weekend. And then, of course, I'll be back on Monday. So let us get into the news. We have so much to discuss. I hope you guys are ready for it. Before we do, if you guys wouldn't mind, just consider supporting one of the sponsors of the programs. That today, first of all, is going to be my friends over at onenessdrops.com/redpill78. These are my friends who make chlorine dioxide water purification kits. Chlorine dioxide, also known as the universal antidote, also known as plenty of things. Lots of people use it for lots of different reasons, but the official approved reason you might need it is because it creates clean, fresh drinking water from any water source that you might find. Chlorine dioxide works at the molecular level to take water that is otherwise unsafe to drink and make it totally safe. So this is something you need to have on hand. If you don't have it on hand and something happens to your water supply, or if you have to go out on a trek into the middle of nowhere, if you're hiking, if you need to get water from a questionable source, then chlorine dioxide is the way that you make sure 100% that it is safe. You can also pick up their mullein extract for lung health, their soursop extract for cellular regeneration, their pure DMSO, which is great for injuries of the body. I use DMSO on a regular basis. I use all of this stuff on a regular basis. They also are, of course, going to give you 15% off when you use my code REDPILL78. And if you get one of their bundle packages, it has a reduced price, and then you'll also get another 15% on top of that. So definitely go check them out. The link is in the description below, and when you do, you make sure to let them know that I sent you. All right, guys. And I also need to tell you about the other sponsor to begin with, and that's going to be my friends over here at Rumble and the Kids Guide. So as everybody here knows, if you are a parent, if you're a grandparent, you need to talk to your kids about some pretty important things. And one of the most important things happening this year is America's 250th birthday. 250 years of grit, freedom, sacrifice, and the greatest experiment in self-governance the world has ever known. This is the perfect opportunity to help your kids understand why America matters, why we need to fight for these things that we hold sacrosanct, not just the everyday things, baseball, apple pie, hot dogs, and fireworks, but the story behind it all. And there is a free kids guide called the Kids Guide to America's 250th Birthday. It's a great way to introduce your kids to the subject and tell them how America began, who the founding fathers were, what it was exactly that they risked, and why the ideas that they fought for in founding this country still matter and are still worth fighting for today. The guide is going to send those kids back to the moment when those brave men signed the Declaration of Independence. They knew full well what they were doing, how they were risking their lives for freedom, and it's going to break it all down in a way that kids can easily understand, but more importantly, they're going to enjoy it. And it's not going to be watered down. It's not going to be like they're getting a lesson at school. It's going to be really fun and exciting for them to hear about. And if you are one of those people that cares about your kids and they want to make sure that they know where this country came from, why it's worth preserving, that this is something that you're going to want to get. And the best part is it's totally free. You just pay $2 for shipping and handling, but the book itself is yours, and then you can give it to your kids. You can get it by heading to freeusabirthday.com. That is freeusabirthday.com, and you can get the Kids Guide to America's 250th birthday for your children today. America's story matters. Make sure that the next generation knows it. Thank you so much to Sabrado. Please do a Muffin Gate short. It's so funny. That's a great idea. I hadn't even thought of that, but that is perfect. Yes, I will have to do multiple versions of Muffin Gate. The song one, and then the one with just me and the dogs, and then John at the end. All right, guys. So to begin today, let me see. I wanted to make sure that nothing else. Yeah, everything that I wanted to talk about, they are talking about in the news as well. Okay, so we are going to begin with a breakdown of those secret videos that have been posted by the White House. There was a couple of additional ones that were posted, and we now know exactly what it is that they were talking about. I think that people were hoping it was going to be something far grander. My expectations were tempered. I've been watching the White House and their social media strategy throughout Trump 2.0. They've used a lot of tropes that we've identified from years past that people thought was going to result in one thing or another, but really, I think that they're just using the stuff as marketing tools because they know that people are going to pay attention. Now, take a look at this one. You have a video that was posted by the White House, and then I think they may have deleted it later. There's a couple of these that I know that they have deleted, but when you reverse the video, it's actually backwards, and then you reverse it, and then you play it at slightly slower speed, you can hear that there is a message, and it's in regards to them dropping something. Take a listen. No satanic messages. Okay, so these are just audiograms, and you could see that it showed the White House with President Donald J. Trump. You have just about 6.5 seconds of continuous audio. There is a little bit of noise, so they had to clean it up a little bit. Okay, so that was what they posted. Now you're going to hear it backwards. Okay, something about the announcement tomorrow. Well, that tomorrow is today, and that's where we are right now. This is the original video, so it looks like it is still up. And thank you to Sherry K, who says, Zach, the DMSO is amazing. Oh, I'm glad that you're using it. My son was struggling with pitching. He's a high school senior and in so much pain. I got this on a hope and a prayer, and it literally made a miracle worker for him. Did you watch that clip that I showed you guys from 60 Minutes? Because that was really what convinced me that this was, I mean, even before I met my friends over here at Oneness Drops, I had wanted to try DMSO. And I saw all of these pro sports players, and they were using it. They were like, every single day I use it, and it makes it possible for me to get out there. I did the same thing with my with my son, with Lisa's son. We got him some DMSO. He was a pitcher as well, and it definitely helped. But then he ended up stopping playing. So that's cool that it's definitely allowing him to keep playing. I'm glad to hear that. All right, now. We got that first video that we showed you that said sound on, and it said, that's cool, it's dropping soon. Then there was the other one with the phone ringing. We saw that. Then yesterday we saw the pixelated version of President Trump. And then there was another pixelated version of President Trump, and then another one. And then the FCC actually responded to the White House with another pixelated picture, and they retweeted the first one. And here it is. This is what those bizarre messages were pointing to. Freedom is coming. Do you remember that website that I told you that the White House was planning to create, which would give people around the world access to information that was being essentially suppressed in their home nations? Well, that's what this is. It is the launch of that free information website, essentially giving all of these countries who can't get on X from their native nations because the internet is being blocked or they can't see certain content. Essentially, all of this is going to be available at freedom.gov. Now, right now, it just says freedom is coming, information is power, reclaim your human right to free expression. Get ready. And like that conversation I had at the beginning of the show yesterday, you know, freedom of speech, freedom of information is sacrosanct. And protecting freedom of speech is not simply about protecting the things that you like to hear. It's mostly about protecting the things that you don't like to hear. Because as soon as you start placing rules on what people can and can't say, once you get rid of all the offensive speech, it's only a matter of time before they start coming for the inoffensive speech. And we saw that firsthand here in the United States of America in the last couple of years. And we're watching it play out in European countries all around the world. Now, at the same time, there is actually a bit of a pushback from that. We're also having a populist nationalist renaissance around the world where these right-wing coalitions and governments are being elected. It looks like AfD is set to take power in Germany. Same thing is happening in France with Marine Le Pen's party. So in many different nations around the world where it's already happened and where it's happening, we're moving towards a society globally that is more closely aligned with the sort of Make America Great Again agenda. And it truly is a wonderful thing. So digital freedom is a priority for the State Department, and that includes the proliferation of privacy and censorship circumvention technologies like VPNs, virtual private networks, which apparently the State Department is going to give people access to. You'll be able to go to this website, freedom.gov, and I believe that the website will act as a VPN for people in other countries. Let's go to it and see if anything has changed since earlier. Okay, and nope, it does look as if the website is still at this point. So it's not fully operational yet, but it will be very soon. And I believe that that is going to be happening this weekend. So definitely, yeah, Japan, that is one excellent example. Italy has already been on board for some time. Hungary, that's why they're trying to take down Viktor Orban. Now, we also have a very strange situation. In the last couple of days, a set of hackers had announced Paul Revere because the British are coming, maybe because in Britain you have the censorship of speech. I mean, that's one of the countries where they're definitely having a problem with that. It's not the British people, it's the British government, the British deep state, and the United States. We broke off from Britain, and perhaps I think it's a wink and a nod at that. Now, here, We have, in the last couple of days, had a hacker collective that claimed to have hacked into Lockheed Martin. And they were essentially trying to get anybody associated with Lockheed Martin to stop collaborating with Israel. And they started doxing people, employees of Lockheed Martin that were present in the Middle East, and telling them that they had, 24 to 48 hours to get out of Israel, to get out of the Middle East, and to stop collaborating as a company. And then earlier today, it was announced that an Iranian-backed hacking collective, and I don't know if it's the same collective as the one that hacked into Lockheed Martin, it seems possible they are the same or they are at least connected. They hacked Kash Patel. They actually hacked into Kash Patel's personal information. Yes, Handala, it's definitely them. The Handala hack team. Now, I had never heard of these guys before, and I want to be very clear, just because they've been identified as a, quote, Iranian hacking collective, it doesn't mean that it is Iranian government or Iranian citizens. It doesn't even mean that they have anything to do with Iran. It would be politically and narratively expedient to blame this on Iran, especially if a foreign government who is happy and very adept at creating psychological operations and spinning narrative threads, if they wanted the United States to come and take some sort of action as a result of this hack. So I think that calling it an Iranian hacking collective is perhaps just a little bit premature, even if this collective says that they are Iranian. As an example, take a look at Anonymous. Now, Anonymous, many years ago, was infiltrated by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and it went from being a collective of anonymous online people who was seeking internet freedom and the free exchange of information. And then they got hacked themselves by the FBI, and they essentially became a left-wing mouthpiece. So yes, from what I understand, this is just Kash Patel's Gmail account. It's his personal email. I don't believe that they've gotten into his FBI email. But it goes without saying that we recently had a hack at the FBI in the Southern District of New York, where they supposedly deleted many, many millions of files related to Jeffrey Epstein and investigations into him. So Reuters is saying that the Justice Department has confirmed that Patel's email had been breached, and they said the material published online appeared to be authentic. Now, the FBI has not immediately responded. The hackers also did not immediately respond to messages that were sent to them by the fake news media. Now, Handala calls itself a group of pro-Palestinian vigilante hackers. They're considered by Western researchers to be one of several personas used by Iranian government cyber intelligence units. Handala recently claimed the hack of Michigan-based medical services provider Strikeron on March 11th, and they claim to have deleted a massive trove of company data. Reuters was not able to independently authenticate the Patel emails, but the personal Gmail address that Handala claims to have broken into matches the email address that's linked to Patel in previous data breaches that was preserved by dark web intelligence firm District 4 Labs. Now, Alphabet is the company that is owning Google. They run Gmail, have not responded to a request for comment. So the Gmail address that was targeted by hackers was one that was previously linked to Patel in older data breaches. So there's actually the possibility that this isn't a new data breach at all, and that someone had this information from a prior breach and they simply had not released it yet. And so now they're releasing it, maybe with the intention of appearing to have more power and more skill than they actually have, or to tie themselves to Iranian cyber intelligence operations, or maybe to simply make Kash Patel look bad. I saw a lot of people trashing Kash Patel online. You know, I mean, this is his personal email address. It's not like this is his FBI email and they got into his BlackBerry and he's using his federal BlackBerry to like take pictures of himself smoking cigars and going to dinner and stuff. I mean, like, what does anybody do if they go out someplace? I mean, like, people are taking pictures. You take a look at anybody's phone, you're probably going to find a whole bunch of pictures pictures that they've taken over the years. You know, maybe pictures of their food, pictures of their wife, pictures of their dogs, pictures of their lawn after they mowed it. So I think that people attacking Kash Patel for having personal pictures on his personal Gmail account, it's pretty stupid, and I'm not paying much attention to it at all. So this Newsweek reported that Handala posted this information on their website after the FBI seized their domain names and announced a $10 million reward for the members. So this group has decided to fight back within the hack. This so-called impenetrable systems of the FBI were brought to their knees within hours by our team, the Handala website states. I'd also like to point out that that statement is not really accurate, because we don't have any information to suggest that Handala has hacked into Kash Patel or anybody else's FBI.gov email. They hacked into his Gmail account. Pretty much anybody's Gmail information is out there online, which is why they suggest that you change your password on a regular basis. So all personnel and confidential information of Kash Patel, including emails, conversations, documents, and even classified files, is now available for public download. Update, the FBI released a statement on the breach of Kash Patel's public email. Now, if this is true, that they have classified files that were on Kash Patel's public Gmail account, obviously that's a problem. But I would point out that Hillary Clinton had tens of thousands of classified documents that were even supposed to remain in a sensitive, compartmentalized information format inside of a physical SCIF, and nothing happened to that woman. So I'm not calling for Kash Patel to be fired, unless, of course, they also are willing to go after Hillary Clinton and press charges on her. All right, so Shelby Talcott has apparently gotten a comment directly from the FBI. I have yet to see anybody publishing anything allegedly from Kash Patel's email that confirms what they said about classified data or anything related to the government. So the FBI is aware of malicious actors targeting Patel's personal email and notes that the State Department has a program offering up to $10 million for any information leading to the identification of the Handala hack team out of Iran. So the full statement, this information in question is historical in nature and involves no government information. That's from the FBI. The Department of State's Rewards for Justice program offers this $10 million reward. This is a group that has frequently targeted U.S. government officials. Consistent with President Trump's cyber strategy for America, the FBI will continue to pursue the actors responsible, support victims, and share actionable intelligence and defensive networks. We encourage anyone who experiences a cyber breach or who has information related to a malicious cyber activity to contact their local FBI field office. All right. Now, the other thing that I want to say is that the pictures that they're releasing from Kash Patel's email, again, they're benign. All right. It's a guy doing things in his life. He's not even with his girlfriend. He's not taking nudes or anything like it's totally benign. So anybody looking to use this as, some type of vector to attack Kash Patel, I think it's kind of stupid. All right. Now, moving on. This is, however, something that I will fully back up anybody making fun of. Early this morning, a Secret Service agent who was assigned to so-called former First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden, accidentally shot himself while escorting Jill Biden through the Philadelphia International Airport. It's one thing to accidentally desk pop every now and then. Now, I've got guns all over my house. I have never accidentally discharged my weapons, and I'm also not trained to be a Secret Service agent. Maybe he's using a oh gosh, what are those guns that kept going off? Guns that kept firing. Oh God, somebody's gonna remember this. I've talked about this on a couple of SIG. Yes, SIG P320. Thank you, sir. Thank you. If it's a SIG P320, I will give this guy a pass. But I have never accidentally discharged a weapon. I have both hands. I'm not trained as a Secret Service agent. If this is anything other than a P320, this is a big deal because not only was he safeguarding the former first lady, but he was also in the middle of an airport. Can you imagine everybody freaking out? Can you also imagine that bullet ricocheting off perhaps a hard metal or a hard concrete floor and maybe striking somebody else, doing damage, violating or wounding somebody else? Jeez, oh, Pete. All right, so the agent shot himself in the leg near Terminal C in the airport, and the Secret Service has not released any information. It's just being reported on by local media. So a police cordon was in place around Terminal C. I'm sure that the agent was very, very embarrassed. And, of course, he had to go to the hospital because he actually he got shot in the leg. Jill Biden, I guess, is giving speeches around the United States, pulling in that skrill, dollar bills, y'all. She's talking about empowering women. How empowering to have a man shoot himself in the leg in front of you. She also noted how she seeks to empower minority women, and particularly in her staff. I only hire people of color because, of course, I like it when people with brown skin wait on me. That is Dr. Jill Biden, everyone. The shooting, of course, comes in the midst of a TSA shutdown. So I suppose the good news is ICE was on hand, but this guy, of course, did not get tackled or anything like that. Yeah, P320 is plausible deniability. I bet you anything it was a P320 because you know, this guy probably knows a lot better. All right. Now, the argument about the SAVE Act has consistently been the fact that Democrats are not willing to vote on it because, it's going to make everything difficult. We can't have people proving their citizenship because, of course, you know, women, they're too stupid to get a new driver's license after they get married. People of color, they can't figure out where the Secretary of State is, blah, blah, blah. We don't dislike the idea of voter ID. In fact, we would vote for voter ID. So the Republicans in the Senate set a trap for them, much like President Trump did with NATO. And they put forth a stripped version of the SAVE Act. I think they knew that it was going to fail. It was simply a voter ID amendment. All it would do is require every single person in the nation voting to show a photo ID. And wouldn't you know it, the Democrats voted against it. So they have proven that there's nothing that they're going to be able to do to force or to convince, rather, the Democrats to vote yes on the SAVE Act, because it's not about what they're saying it's about. They want to keep everything off the table. They are not negotiating in good faith. I think all of us already knew that. I would imagine probably a good portion of the Senate is aware of that as well. But of course, it seems like the only person who doesn't know that or who isn't willing to admit it is John Thune. John Thune is a tremendous cuck. He has been unwilling to play hardball up until this point. Until last night. Wait until you hear what they did at 3 a.m. The Senate successfully ended the shutdown. But before that, President Trump went off on Chuck Schumer and the Republicans in the Senate who were unable to make a deal. So yesterday, right near the end of my show, President Trump announced that he was going to instruct the Department of Homeland Security to pay TSA agents. So he was working yesterday on an order that he planned to sign today, and he did sign it, gave it to DHS Chief Mark Wayne Mullen, and TSA agents will begin being paid by Monday. Not only will they be paid for the work that they're now doing, they're also going to get back pay for the last several weeks. Even if they didn't show up to work, President Trump is still going to pay them. So they'll have the incentive to now come back to work. President Trump said the radical left Democrats and their leader, Crying Chuck Schumer, have made it very clear where they stand. And that is on the side of the criminal illegal aliens and not the American people. They are refusing to fund immigration enforcement unless the Republicans agree to their open borders policies, which will never happen, never, ever happen again. They almost destroyed our country, allowing 25 million people to enter from prisons, mental institutions, and insane asylums, those that are drug dealers and thousands of murderers, many of whom killed more than one person. Because the Democrats have recklessly created a true national crisis, I am using my authority under the law to protect the... Hold on. to protect. Where did my freaking place go? To protect our great country, as I always do. Therefore, I am going to sign an order instructing the Secretary of Homeland Security, METHYLENE, to immediately pay our TSA agents in order to address this emergency situation and to quickly stop the Democrat chaos at the airports. It is not an easy thing to do, but I am going to do it. I want to thank our hardworking TSA agents and also ICE for the incredible help they've given us at the airports. I will not allow the radical left Democrats to hold our country hostage any longer. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So this unilateral action is essentially taking funds, which are part of the one big beautiful bill. It will allow METHYLENE to immediately pay all of TSA, Border Patrol, and everything related to immigration enforcement. It will allow them to pay TSA, and Border Patrol and ICE will continue to be paid from that money from the one big beautiful bill, because despite the efforts of the Senate at 3 a.m. to end the shutdown and open up the government paying DHS, that is not actually going to work in the way that they anticipated. So 50,000 TSA officers will begin being paid on Monday, and they will return to work on Monday. Well, maybe they'll return to work tomorrow. But take a look. I want to actually show you the moment that John Thune and the Republicans in the Senate ended the shutdown last night at 3 a.m. Now, what have they been saying about the SAVE Act and about getting TSA and DHS funded? Oh, you know, they need the votes. They have to debate on it. We need everybody to be there. We can't nuke the filibuster. We have to go within the rules of the Senate. Well, take a listen to this. First of all, what do you notice? John Thune appears to be the only person in the Senate, and then Bernie Moreno is presiding over the Senate. But listen in the background.
Is there further debate?
If not, questions on the passage of the bill as amended?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The bill as amended is passed.
So what did this bill do? Well, this bill opened up DHS and funded it. Except it didn't fund it didn't fund ICE and Customs and Border Protection. And because it was done at 3 in the morning, there were only 5 people present. There were 5 people present. Now, what you heard in that clip was a single person saying yay to the vote, no one saying no. They went outside of the boundaries of what was supposed to happen because all of the Democrats were on vacation, and they passed this dream bill to open up DHS without funding ICE and Customs and Border Patrol, and they didn't pass the one big beautiful bill. So this shows you everything you need to know. They could have passed the SAVE Act. They could have attached the SAVE Act to this covert DHS funding bill that they pushed through last night. They could have gotten everything done that President Trump wanted them to do, but they didn't. They did it under the cover of darkness, thinking that this morning they were going to just deliver this to the House. Oh my gosh, Republicans have successfully opened up the government. They've ended the shutdown. Thank you so much, Leader Thune, for your wise and appropriate counsel. So instead of doing what they could have done, all they did was hand Democrats essentially exactly what they wanted. They didn't fund TSA. They funded TSA, they funded FEMA, they funded the Coast Guard, they funded CISA, but they did not fund ICE and Customs and Border Protection. It was a very slimy, sneaky move. So when the House got to work this morning and they take a look at this bill, they said, what the hell are you doing? And, of course, the House said, we're not going to sign this. We're not going to sign this. We're not going to give the Democrats everything that they wanted. You were supposed to deliver us the Save America Act. You were supposed to get that passed before you did anything else, and they didn't. And they've already told the Senate that they will not be signing anything. So the House Republicans are not going to be taking up the Senate's DHS funding because they stripped out funding for ICE and Customs and Border Protection. They could have added it. They absolutely could have added it. They had no reason to pull it out. if they were going to show up at 3 in the morning and have 5 people vote yes, which is not a quorum. I'll tell you what, that is totally outside of the rules. You need to have a certain number of people present to achieve a quorum. They did not achieve a quorum. So they were right there going outside of their own rules of the Senate. So John Thune has proved himself to be the worst kind of traitorous rat snake that you can find in Congress in Washington, D.C. Perfectly happy in the swamp. How does this happen? Because these people are narcissists, they are self-serving, and they just wanted to go on vacation. They thought that they were going to slink out of Washington, D.C. and get on their private planes, all of them. But, of course, they got caught. Now, take a look. This is Speaker Johnson being asked about this. Yes, voting at 3 a.m. It shouldn't be allowed. In fact, it's not, which is why I say they didn't have a quorum, but they did it anyway. So it shows you that they could get the Save America Act passed, but they just choose not to. There is no balls collectively in the Senate. John Thune is a traitor.
I get all the members together and decide that strategy this morning, but I'll tell you it's infuriating that Democrats are willing to inflict pain on the American people simply so they can defund the agency that is responsible, literally, for removing criminal illegal aliens.
Now, I'll tell you what, Mike Johnson is being very charitable because he's only blaming the Democrats. But as I just showed you, the Senate Republicans who pushed this bill through in the middle of the night without a quorum, they could have attached ICE and Customs and Border Protection to it, and they could have attached the Save America Act to it. But John Thune and whatever whatever rhino cuck cadre he's working with in the Senate, they sold out America, and they left in the middle of the night so that they could go on their vacations with their families. You know what? 50,000 TSA officials, employees, are they going to be able to have their holidays with their families? Who knows? Because they didn't get paid for the last 6 weeks. Many of those people are not going to have their houses come the next month or two. Some of those people already got kicked out of their apartments. Some of those people were forced to live in their vehicles. Some of those people still showed up to work, but nobody gets as much vacation time as the Senate and the House, let me tell you. They had a trip already planned. They were ready to go away for Easter. Now, here, John Thune, the supposed Senate majority leader, ICE and Customs Border Protection, both are already funded through 2029. The machine says so anyways. So they're funded through the one big beautiful bill. That is money that is there, but there is still a budget that has to be passed. Now, ICE and Customs and Border Protection are being paid. All right. But all of DHS was not being paid because they were not previously being paid by the one big beautiful bill. But there has to be appropriations for the operations of Customs and Border Protection. There is more to the funding of ICE and CBP than simply the salaries of the people who show up to work every day. So there is still an appropriations process that has to be done. So at 2:20 a.m. last night, after apparently a marathon session that reeked of sneaky backroom dealing, the Senate unanimously, with 5 votes, approved this voice vote package to fund the Department of Homeland Security without any appropriations for ICE and Customs and Border Protection. Democrats were not there. They did not show up. And this is something that they could have done weeks ago if they wanted to do it this way. But instead, they thought that they would wait till the last second and then they would rush away off on vacation. Now, let's take a listen to some of the other members of the caucus. Here we have Tom Emmer, who is very, very upset about what they did.
Well, actually, I'll start out with our speaker is very unhappy. I'm not happy. Our whole leadership group, what the Senate did was, frankly, not right. We are going to make sure that border is funded. This is about making sure that President Trump's #1 promise was that the border was going to be secure. He's accomplished with Republican leadership incredible things with the southern border. It has never been as tight as it is right now. But we are not going to allow these radical, anarchist, Marxist, socialist Democrats to literally stop or create an open border situation again like we experienced under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And we're going to make sure that we continue to deport criminal, illegal aliens. This is what Americans want.
But if there is a no vote in the House today, does that mean that the Senate has to come back to do it all over again?
The House will have a solution. That's as much as I can tell you. There'll be more on that very shortly. I think the leadership team with
The House will have a solution. The solution is that they're going to do another continuing resolution. So Customs and Border Protection and ICE as an agency will be funded, which means that Tom Emmer and Thune and Cornyn and all of the other ones in the Senate who have already left on vacation, they're believing that they're just going to get to stay away on vacation. Now, apparently Lauren Boebert has started calling the aides of all of these people and saying, you better freaking book them a ticket home because we are not done here. They still have not given us the Save America Act. Now, here is John Thune sneaking away on his private plane with a couple of aides. He's already gone. Saw Marsha Blackburn. She was jumping on a plane. Chip Roy, earlier this morning, he said that there's no way we are not going to vote on this bill that the Senate sent over to us because it has no funding for these agencies that we've said time and time again need to be funded. So take a listen.
Hey everybody, it's Chip Roy here from Texas 21, and what the Senate just sent over to the House is so laughably bad, we're rejecting it out of hand. They sent over a bill that's not going to fund ICE and Border Patrol and stand with the great men and women who are defending our country. We reject.
Yeah, the Thune bill that was sent over at 2:20 a.m. is dead in the water. The House is not going to vote for it. They are not going to fund part of DHS, and they're not going to allow the Senate to do that. So the Senate still needs to do their job. They still need to pass the Save America Act. They still need to pass the appropriate version of the funding for the entirety of DHS, which includes CBP and ICE. And whatever they sent over is not going to be voted on.
Like that.
Who's APAC rating? I don't think Chip Roy has an APAC rating. I'm sure that Thune does, though. Oh, come on.
Hey everybody, it's Chip Patrol and stand with the great men and women who are defending our country. We reject that. We're going to stand alongside our law enforcement personnel. We're going to have a full-throated debate. We're deciding what we're going to do, but suffice it to say, we need to stand with those who are standing up for us to defend our country. We need to fully fund them. We need to consider voter ID and other things to make our country safer and better. But we're not going to move this Senate bill. We're going to move something better and send it back to the Senate. We have to.
Now, here's the thing. Whatever the House does still has to be sent back to the Senate to be approved in the Senate. So quite literally, all of the funding is going to be in some type of emergency form for the time being. Now, Andy Ogles, really like Andy Ogles, he says that Republicans are actually going to be adding in the ICE funding along with voter ID and the various elements of the Save America Act when they send back that new bill to the Senate. Let's take a listen.
So what the Senate did last night was they passed a bill that did not fully fund the government, meaning Child Sex Trafficking Investigation Unit isn't funded. They didn't fully fund Homeland Security. So we're focused on amending the bill and putting that back in, and we're going to add in voter ID in the process. They're cowardly, they didn't do their job, and now they left town. They should come back, and they should have to do their job.
Now, I sure hope that Ogles and whoever is writing up this new bill in the House is not simply going to add a voter ID provision. It's not enough to simply have voter ID. You've got to have the proof of citizenship. You've got to have the other elements that are present in the Save America Act. Let's see. Oh, and I read Makes Sense to Me Too previously. Okay, Judy the Ladybug, thank you for the cookie. Sean Joe, thank you for the can. Filter Dog says, just dropped in Fani Willis deposition. The corrupt DA was banging a 77-year-old Al Sharpton while running her office like a personal hustle. You're saying that while Fani Willis was banging her top prosecutor boyfriend, Nathan Wade, she was also banging Skin and Bones, Jack Skellington, Al Sharpton? Are you serious? Darla says, Paxton better win against Cornyn. He's going to. He's up by 17 points, and he's rising every day. The NRSC has dropped all funding for John Cornyn, and President Trump had a private meeting with Ken Paxton, I believe, this morning. John Cornyn is dead in the water. Don't like Abbott either, but good afternoon, everyone. Abbott isn't going to be running again. I mean, this is his second term as governor, so yeah, it is what it is. Sean Joe, thank you for the cookie and the can. And then Filter Dog, JD Vance just dropped a bombshell. UFOs aren't aliens, they're demons. I think they're demons. Yes, I saw that. And we also now have another clip here from Mike Johnson, where, again, he's being far too kind to John Thune. I would imagine it's because Thune is the leader of the Republicans in the Senate, and Mike Johnson is the leader of the Republicans in the House, but he needs to find his balls himself.
I wouldn't call John Thune the engineer of this. Chuck Schumer and the Democrats in the Senate. Chuck Schumer and the Democrats in the Senate have forced this upon the Senate. I have to protect the House. Let me answer.
They have forced it upon the Senate, but the Senate could have forced all of the funding onto the Democrats by sending that entire funding for DHS last night. They didn't. They gave the Democrats essentially everything that they wanted, which was no funding for ICE and Customs and Border Protection. They wanted it split off because that way, you get partial funding, and then they make it an easier gambit to continue not funding ICE and CBP.
Answer the question, Chad. I have to protect the House, and I have to protect the American people. That's our responsibility. Our colleagues on this side understand this is not a game. We are not playing their games. These people want open borders, and they want criminal, illegal aliens in the country. They do not want to enforce the law. They want to literally defund. You just read it in the bill here. They want to give $0 to enforcing federal immigration laws and keeping the border secure. That was the biggest issue in the election of 2024. The wide open border that lines would shrink. I wouldn't call.
Yeah, he needs to find the gumption within him to call a spade a spade. Emerald Dragon says, Zach, please don't besmirch Jack Skellington's good name like that. Thanks. Surter says, how did they pass the 16th Amendment? How many people were present? What time of year was it? And what are the similarities to now? It's very similar. And once again, they did it illegally. So, but here's the thing. They did it. And now it's being on the books as part of the Constitution for so many years. So once again, it goes to show you that when they want to bend the rules, when they want to do something, quote, creatively, they have the ability to do so. Every single thing that John Thune has said up until this point is null and void, and which is why there is now a growing movement within House leadership to dump John Thune. They are calling on their friends in the Senate to have a vote of no confidence in John Thune. Now, Todd Starnes went on X and he said, we should call on Thune to step aside. We now have a sitting member of Congress officially calling on Majority Leader Thune to be removed from power. And that person calling for him to be removed is Representative John Rose. John Rose earlier today called out what I've been talking about, the passage of the spending bill that would only partially fund DHS, except for immigration and customs and border protection. On X, he wrote, and just like that, while Americans were asleep, Senate Republicans were wide awake, tossing the radical Democrats a political lifeline to end the government shutdown without funding ICE and CBP. Now they're off to take their recess, getting off the hook from having to vote on the Save America Act and fully funding ICE. I'm glad TSA agents will be getting a paycheck thanks to the efforts of President Trump. They should never be used as political pawns again. But let me be clear. This shutdown was squarely on the Democrats. They put illegal aliens before Americans, and some Senate Republicans just ran cover for them. One of those Senate Republicans is obviously John Thune. So he says, President Trump is right. Thune and Senate Republicans should weld the Save America Act to must-pass DHS funding, protect our elections, secure our homeland. We should do both, not just because Americans overwhelmingly support it, but because it's the right thing to do, full stop. Now, in regards to the continuing resolution, let me get the specifics here from Mike Johnson. Oh, gosh, and you guys, Tiger Woods got into another DUI, bro. He rolled his car down here in Jupiter, Florida. What is this, like the third time he's done this? I mean, Tiger, I thought you got your life together, bro, but you keep doing this. It's just too bad. And he's being arrested. Here's President Trump commenting.
I feel so badly. He's got some difficulty. There was an accident, and that's all I know. Very close friend of mine. He's an amazing person, amazing man, but some difficulty.
It's tragic, okay? I mean, like, I know all too well the difficulty of getting sober. I was unable to get sober for years, so I know exactly what Tiger is going through. But he has everything that he needs to get his life back on track again. I mean, he's done it before. He came back, had an amazing resurgence in his career, and unfortunately, he's still succumbing to the demons of alcohol abuse. All right, so these are the Republicans that showed up for this vote last night, and a couple of them I'm disappointed in. Eric Schmidt, I really liked Eric Schmidt. Why did he partake in something like this? Why did Bernie Moreno take part in something like this? Andy Kim, I don't know Andy Kim. Brian Schatz, I don't know Brian Schatz. I already know I don't like John Thune. John Thune is, again, he's a rhino cuck. But okay, so here is House GOP saves Senate GOP from itself. So what this will be is a temporary extension of DHS funding through May 22nd through the use of a continuing resolution. Johnson said House Republicans are not going to swallow the Senate bill. Republicans are not going to be any part of any effort to reopen our borders or stop immigration enforcement. We're going to deport dangerous criminal illegal aliens because it's a basic function of government. The Democrats fundamentally disagree, of course. Cynthia 67 says, can Trump do recess appointments? Well, isn't that interesting? Yeah, he could do recess appointments if John Thune hadn't set up daily 2-minute Senate pro tempore sessions, which uses people who are not members of the Senate, but employees of the Senate, to show up and temporarily reopen the Senate just long enough to stop President Trump from being able to do a recess appointment. So, no, unfortunately, just like every other time the Senate has adjourned for whatever reason, John Thune is stopping President Trump from being able to do recess appointments. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Never at any point in history has the reigning party of the presidency, who controls the reigning parties of both the House and the Senate, had his own appointments blocked by his own party. This has never happened in history in any other administration. So John Thune is not only directly blocking the full funding of the government, the passage of the Save America Act, but he is also blocking President Trump from being able to get his own recess appointments through. Now, I have told you about Representative Sheila Scherfelis McCormick previously. She is that corrupt Democrat representative from down here in Florida. Her ethics trial in the House actually resulted in charges of ethics violations. So she is still going through her legal wranglings. She will be found guilty, either that or she will be forced to plead guilty and she will take a plea deal. But her hand was caught in the cookie jar. And now she is being asked not only by the Republicans, but also by certain members of her own party to either resign or get kicked out. So the House Ethics Committee probe found that Sheila Scherfelis McCormick did in fact break campaign finance laws and committed a variety of other violations by taking more than $5 million in federal relief and funneling much of that money toward her own political aspirations. One of those aspirations was a giant diamond ring, which she was photographed with in one of her campaign photos, a photo that was used time and time again. Of course, after she was found to have purchased that diamond ring with the COVID money that she had stolen, or with the campaign money, rather, that she had stolen, she had her team actually edit that diamond ring out of the photograph that they continued to use of her. Now, this was an 8-member subcommittee. They voted early this morning on Sheriff McCormick's violations. They found that she was guilty of 25 different counts related to this scheme following a rare public trial that stretched for more than 6 hours on Thursday night. It's not clear how each member voted on the panel. It's comprised of 4 Democrats and 4 Republicans, but we just know that a majority did, in fact, believe that she had committed these violations. So what did she actually do? In case you didn't see that story that we did on this previously, she was indicted by a federal grand jury for stealing $5 million in FEMA funds last November. During the press conference from the Justice Department at the time of this announcement, she and her brother, Edwin Cherfulis, stole $5 million in FEMA funds, and then they funneled it through a variety of different accounts to smurf it into Sheila Cherfulis McCormick's own 2021 congressional campaign. Cherfulis McCormick is now facing up to 53 years in prison if convicted, and this House Ethics Committee was originally looking at 27 counts, and I don't know why they didn't find her guilty on all of them. Maybe it's because she hasn't actually been found guilty in a court of law yet. But accepting excessive contributions from individuals and entities beyond federal limits was one of those violations. Another was accepting illegal corporate contributions. Another was using an illegal conduit or straw donor contributions and then hiding the true source of the funds. Another was systematic misreporting to the FEC, either incorrect payees, incorrect amounts, dates, and sources of contributions and expenditures across multiple campaign cycles. She apparently started doing this back in 2018. She also failed to properly report or misreport candidate loans and repayments. She had a commingling of personal, business, and campaign funds. And, of course, money laundering for improperly retained government funds. These were the FEMA/COVID payments, which were made to her family's company. That company was Trinity Healthcare Services, LLC. Isn't it funny that a Democrat criminal congresswoman had a family that was also running a healthcare business, which is the same type of fraud that we see taking place in all of these Democrat-controlled areas around the country. Portions of that money were also funneled into her congressional campaign in 2021 and 2022. She's also accused of money laundering of illegal campaign contributions. Some of these were Haiti-related entities. I believe that she may originally come from Haiti. She also, of course, lied. She made false statements on FEC reports. She violated financial disclosure requirements. She had a failure to file a required candidate financial disclosure statement for 2018, 2020, and the 2022 candidacies. She knew and willfully filed inaccurate disclosures, including underreporting or mischaracterizing of income from her businesses. She had large consulting or profit-sharing payments from her healthcare company, Trinity, that lacked any supporting documentation. There were also a variety of ethics violations, providing special favors to allies and friends in connection with congressional community projects and funding and earmark requests, basically violating her oath by promising special favors and earmarks to people in exchange for campaign donations or perhaps introductions to powerful people. This, of course, is conduct that does not reflect credibility on the House. In fact, it makes them all look like criminals, but at least they've done something about it. She also failed to uphold U.S. laws and regulations. So I anticipate that Sheila Cherfulis McCormick will no longer be a member of the House of Representatives very soon. Yes, I believe that the vast majority of members of Congress behave in this exact way. Sheila Cherfulis McCormick just flew a little too close to the sun, it would appear. AOB 22 says Congress is about effective as tits on a boar hog. Yep, you're absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. All right. Now, Filter Dog mentioned that there is a case taking place down in Georgia right now. You see, Fulton, there may be multiple cases going on, but I know that Fulton County is actually attempting to basically circumvent the FBI's efforts to keep that election-related material and investigate them. And at the same time, a Georgia State Senate bill for election security that was written and proposed by Senator Greg Dolezal, who I've told you about before, it actually passed today. Now, Garland Favorito put out this information this morning on that Senate bill. So Georgia state senators voted earlier today on House Bill 9 or HB 960. This bill is for hand-marked paper ballots. It would provide several features to help secure the 2026 Georgia general election. So it passed, and the provisions from this bill will be in effect for the midterms this year. The House bill carried by Senator Greg Dolezal was repurposed in the Senate Ethics Committee after the original language was included in House Bill 1215 and passed out of the Senate Judiciary Committee. The Senate version now specifies hand-marked paper ballots to replace the quick response QR-coded ballots that are unverifiable to the voter and have been found to violate 3 Georgia statutes. We talked about those either late last week or early this week. HB 960 mandates post-certification recounts of key federal and state races in all types of elections to ensure correct voting system results. It also mandates that recounts in contests with under a 1% victory margin are hand-counted to ensure the election is awarded to the correct candidate. So no more just counting the tapes from the Dominion voting machines. Current law offers no hand recounts to verify secret voting system counts, and close races are recanvassed, which simply reprints the previously unverifiable results. HB 960 also mandates timely posting of current eligible voter lists before the election and prompt posting of current lists of voters who voted immediately after the election. So we'll see who should be voting prior to the election, and then we'll see who actually voted immediately after the election. No more of this. What we're talking about is happening in Texas and Pennsylvania, with Unite for Freedom identifying all of these ballots shifting and vote counts being changed before and then after the election as well. So these lists are essential so that we can reconcile the number of voters versus who actually voted and the number of ballots that were cast. Now, HB 960 also mandates that ballot batch identifiers for all election ballots, and it activates current infrared detection that can verify ballot security paper. The batch identifiers and infrared detection will help deter fraudulent duplication of ballots that can be easily inserted into election results. Think about all of those ballots that were duplicated in the 2020 election in Georgia. Think about the fake ballots that were inserted, the information that we had about possible Chinese ballots being inserted into the election system. That will not be a problem any longer. HB 960 takes care of a lot of problems that they've had in Georgia. You've got other provisions which require post-election open records requests for electronic copies of ballots to be provided within 30 days at no charge to the requester. This is another huge problem. Many times, election security researchers have attempted to get information so that we can check and verify what election results were, and people end up getting a bill from the county for tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars. Oh no, A. Jones 0707 says he had a Glock 9mm. Well, partner, that one's on you. Oh, that guy's probably going to get fired. That's too bad. Wait a second. Are you saying that this was not the first time this has happened? This is like 20 years ago. He didn't have a piece. Wait a second. Oh, are you talking about a different scenario? Oh, you had a friend who was a cop and he shot himself twice. Ah, okay. I thought you were talking about the Secret Service agent. Man, that's a bummer, dude. That's like that's a real desk pop type situation. You don't want to get caught doing desk pops. All right, so yet another provision will transfer audit responsibilities to the state election board. The state election board is the body that has been attempting to force Fulton County and Cobb County and others into producing the results from their records and to show them that they've actually done the type of results that they claim that they do. To have the state election board now be the one handling recounts, that is a major, major victory. Current law allows the Secretary of State to audit the elections it conducts. That's how Brad Raffensperger was able to successfully cover up all of these manipulations of elections in the past. The bill also eliminates that obvious conflict of interest that the Secretary of State would have. Now, a primary outstanding issue is how several large counties can best supply early voting locations with different ballot styles that would be needed in an election. Garland Favorito says the Georgia General Assembly is still working hard on security provisions for our elections. We are grateful to Senator Dolezal and the Georgia Senate leadership for their efforts to get these security improvements over to the House for potential final adjustments. Based on a recent vote of SB 568, which is a similar bill, most Senate Republicans are expected to vote for HB 960, while nearly all Democrats are likely to oppose it. So again, the vote on this was successful. They did get it passed, and I believe that now the House just needs to take a look at it, make sure that there isn't anything that they want to change, and then this will now be law, and the elections in Georgia will more than fully be secure for 2026. Thank you to... let's see. Thank you to Sean Joe for the cookie. Thank you to Curious Patriot for the cookie and another cookie and a can. I appreciate that. All right. Now, taking a look here at another crazy situation. Yet again, an activist judge appointed by Joseph Robinette Biden has attempted to block President Trump from forcing the Pentagon and every federal agency to cut ties with Anthropic. If you'll remember, Anthropic's Claude AI was found to be woke, was found to essentially not be willing to do certain things that the users at the Pentagon wanted it to do. Basically, the argument being made that it was putting troops in danger. So the Pentagon, from everything that I've ever researched, I have never heard of a federal judge telling a president and the Pentagon that they cannot do something, make a decision that they believe is in the best interest of the country. I mean, this is the use of a software product. So this judge, Rita Lynn, has essentially said that President Trump banning Anthropic's Claude from being used at the Pentagon is a First Amendment violation. That is a radical departure from anything related to history and tradition. I mean, we're not talking about President Trump banning somebody from speaking at the Pentagon. This is a freaking piece of software. Unless she's trying to make the argument that Claude has somehow reached like agentic status, like this is AGI now. Claude is actually a human being. Is that what she's saying? Well, anyways, when President Trump made this announcement, he said that the United States of America will never allow a radical left woke company to dictate how our great military fights and win wars. That decision belongs to your commander-in-chief and the tremendous leaders I appoint to run our military. So what the judge has done is basically she's halted the ruling for a week, which is now going to give the Justice Department time to appeal her decision, which of course they are going to do. President Trump continued by saying the left-wing nutjobs at Anthropic have made a disastrous mistake trying to strong-arm the Department of War and force them to obey their terms of service instead of our Constitution. Their selfishness is putting American lives at risk, our troops in danger, and our national security in danger. So therefore, I am directing every federal agency in the U.S. government to immediately cease all use of Anthropic technology. We don't need it, we don't want it, and will not do business with them again. There will be a 6-month phase-out period for agencies like the DOW who are using Anthropic products at various levels. Anthropic better get their act together and be helpful during this phase-out period, or I will use the full power of the presidency to make them comply with major civil and criminal consequences to follow. We will decide the fate of our country, not some out-of-control, radical left AI company run by people who have no idea what the real world is about. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again. Now, the Pentagon also blasted Anthropic and its conversational AI Claude by saying the Department of War has no interest in using AI to conduct mass surveillance of Americans, which is illegal, nor do we want to use AI to develop autonomous weapons that will operate without human involvement. This is the reason Anthropic was saying that they had a problem with apparently what the Pentagon was going to do. But really what they wanted was for the Pentagon to give Claude access to its system. Now, when you install Claude, when you're using Claude, you're approving the terms and conditions just like you are on like TikTok or X or something like that. And so you're giving the system access to certain features on your phone. If the federal government, the Department of War, or any other agency was to do the same for Claude by accepting those terms and conditions, it would allow Claude to have unprecedented access to secure systems within the Pentagon and other agencies of the government. Now, you can't have that, all right? In order for the government and these software packages to work, they've got to be siloed within certain areas. And of course, the Department of War and the federal government is not going to want an AI that comes back and says, I'm not comfortable answering that question. You ask Claude if it's, if a dude in a dress is a woman or a man, and Claude is going to say, well, however they identify, or that's a woman, or whatever it might be. It's just typical left-wing garbage. So here's what we're asking. Allow the Pentagon to use Anthropic's AI model for all lawful purposes. This is a simple, common sense request that will have Anthropic prevent them from jeopardizing crucial military operations and potentially putting our warfighters at risk. We will not let any company dictate terms regarding how we make operational decisions. They have until 5 p.m. to decide. Otherwise, we will terminate our partnership with them and deem them a supply chain risk for the Department of War. Well, they didn't want to play ball, and so they separated. But for some reason, they ended up in court. So Judge Riedlin said her order does not require the Pentagon to use Anthropic and Claude, but blocking federal agencies from using the company is unconstitutional. Totally freaking ridiculous. For example, this order does not require the Department of War to use Anthropic products and services and does not prevent the Department of War from transitioning to other artificial intelligence providers, so long as those actions are consistent with applicable regulation statutes and constitutional provisions. So they could not use it. They just can't say you can't use it. It is freaking so ridiculous. Kitsko says maybe the James Sharpton Boom Boom meetups is why Trump calls her Peekaboo James. No, he calls her Peekaboo James because there's a picture of her with her boobs out on the internet. Like, Peekaboo, it's Letitia. That's why the Peekaboo James is her nickname. Thank you to Sean Joe for the cookie. Appreciate you, buddy. All right. Just a sec here. I'm looking at these chats over here. All right. Now, continuing, it would appear that Data Republican has identified a current contractor with the Department of Energy, someone who has a $15 million contract with the Department of Energy, who was present on one of these No Kings calls. Not only was he present on the call, but he's actually an organizer for the No Kings protest. Now, No Kings, as an organization, is now requesting that tomorrow these protesters go to airports and basically shut them down because the airports have allowed ICE to come in and work there to take the pressure off of TSA agents being unable to work there and helping Americans get on their flights in a timely fashion. So if they show up, I hope that they all get arrested, and I will not be upset if force is necessary to use. But this person is not just a random contractor with the Department of Energy. He's got active nuclear security clearances. He's on camera actually recommending how to go about engaging in a color revolution. His name is Stephen A. Cash. He's also a former CIA officer. Now, of course, as I've said on numerous occasions, you never really leave the CIA. Once CIA, always CIA. But he was officially CIA during the Balkans conflict, during the Bill Clinton era. And under Joe Biden, he was a senior advisor to the undersecretary at DHS for intelligence and analysis. But the day after Trump was elected in 2016, Mr. Cash co-founded an organization called the Steady State. It's a network of more than 340 former intelligence community officials who decided that President Trump was an existential threat. Sounds to me like they were engaging in treason, just throwing it out there. But anytime you've got former intelligence operatives who start a group to work against the duly elected leader of the United States of America, I think that they are directly committing treason against the current administration. Now, once Joe Biden won, and won, of course, in quotation marks, the threat was gone. And Cash then went back to work officially for Joe Biden's DHS. Now, in his own words, he said, "We disappeared." But then Trump won again, and then suddenly the existential threat was back. So Steady State reactivated, and now they are a planning partner with no kings. In the clip we're going to watch, this is during a meeting, and he's recommending, quote, bringing down a dictator. There is, of course, a documentary about the overthrow of Slobodan Milosevic. That's what this is, as a how-to. He suggests that people watch the documentary so that they can learn what to do here in the United States of America to effectively topple the Trump administration. Now, his company with these DOA contracts, Deck Prism LLC, they've got $15 million or more in active DOE contracts. Almost every single one makes him a sole source or non-competed contract, which means that he was probably just given these contracts based upon his prior working relationship with the Biden administration and the Central Intelligence Agency. One of them is for National Nuclear Security Administration. That is our nuclear weapons program. And it was justified because apparently disclosure would compromise national security. That's why they gave him these no-bid contracts. Maybe Lee Zeldin can take a look at this. I think that he follows Data Republican, and he and the agency, of course, the administration, could take a look at these contracts and take them away from him. If you look at his FEC records, he's got more than 20 donations over 20 years, all of them to Democrats and Democrat organizations, never donated to a Republican. He donated $1,001 to Kamala Harris on August 4th, 2024. That was while his NNSA nuclear contract was active. He was a DOE contractor at that time. Data Republican has all of the sauce, and here is Mr. Cash on camera talking about subverting the current administration.
Well, one is, for a while, Soviet Union. Not fascist, communist, but in all respects as authoritarian. Slobodan Milosevic in Serbia in the late 90s, which I do think is a great model for Americans to be looking at, where his apparently iron grip on power, using all the mechanisms that we're seeing President Trump use right now, were basically destroyed by an unlikely alliance of students and unions and coal miners and even some of the police, old ladies
White One CO says, what in God's name is wrong with our Congress? They are not aligned with the American people. That's what's wrong with them. Not all of them, but enough of them. They are not in the position to serve America or her people. They are there for their own self-serving, narcissistic power grab to get rich, to create relationships which will serve them once they leave that position. And of course, while they're there, they get to live in the swamp, in the Democrat-infested den of iniquity, going to cocaine-fueled orgies, maybe getting to hook up with prostitutes, sex workers, with their gay pages on a regular basis. Those people are not congressmen, House members, Senate members, because they love America and they want to do what's right for America. They're there so that they can serve themselves.
Public housing, businessmen all work together to accomplish that with almost no violence. It can happen. Stephanie, again, I think you...
Now, of course, he's talking about Slobodan Milosevic. Trump is nothing like Slobodan Milosevic. I'll be honest. I would be okay if he was more like Slobodan Milosevic. I would be okay if the administration went way harder against the subversive elements like this. But President Trump is not committing war crimes. President Trump is not a fascist. President Trump is doing nothing but trying to make America better. He is trying to bring peace and economic prosperity to the United States and to the rest of the world. President Trump is subverting the efforts of deep state hacks like this guy. And, of course, that's why he can't handle it. They want to get rid of him. They want to institute some sort of socialist utopia here in the United States, a left-wing haven for people to come and trans their kids and basically do whatever the hell they want. It's disgusting.
Mentioned the movie Bringing Down a Dictator previously. I haven't watched it yet, but plan to. It's on YouTube. It's free. It's around 55 minutes long. It's a documentary about the fall of
We can't deport him because he's a citizen. I'm sure that they could find something to go after him for. I mean, at a very minimum, they could strip him of his contracts. But I think that there is an argument to be made that the efforts that he is engaging here in subverting the administration, openly talking about overthrowing our elected leader, stopping the efforts that Trump and the administration is engaging in to make America great again, to bring about peace and prosperity, I think that these could be considered treasonous acts, and I think they should be. And I think that he should be investigated. I think that there's something that could be done, but we can't just kick him out of America, can't just strip him of his citizenship.
Milosevic. It's sort of a how-to in some ways. It does end in a march on the Capitol building to keep a election going. So there's a certain amount of confusion there when you watch it, but it's inspiring. It focuses on a group called Otpor, which was a student-run organization that galvanized the country along with others, but also put pressure on all of those strange bedfellows to get together and do something. It's also narrated by Martin Sheen, so if you're a West Wing fan, you'll enjoy it.
Right from the start, the revolution consultants follow a specific strategy, a strategy developed by the Serbian organization Otpor. This organization mobilized millions of people to bring about the downfall of Serbian leader Slobodan Milosevic. Their strategy became a blueprint.
One of the things.
So yeah, the color revolution strategy is already in play. And I would say that the reason the feds are not at his door is because he's freaking CIA. This guy is protected. He's insulated. I don't know that anybody who would be relevant to participating in an investigation of him was even aware of him, which is why it's so exciting and important that Data Republican was able to get this video, publish the information, and that's why I'm trying to amplify it. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this section out. I will be uploading this to Shorts later, and who knows, maybe we can post it underneath Lee Zeldin's Twitter timeline. I've been blowing him up about trying to fix the price of diesel, which they actually did something. They got rid of the requirement for DEF sensors. And that will be one thing that will help people out. People would previously get in a lot of trouble if they removed those, if they did the deletes on their diesels. But now everybody can do it, apparently, and your truck will run even better. Now, right here, it looks like the state of Minnesota is now suing the Trump administration for the information related to the killings of Alex Preddy and Renee Nicole Good. Now, the Tim Walz administration says that he is building this case using some of the very same 501c3 left-wing nonprofits that are probably engaging in the No Kings organizations. But he's also using the United Nations, apparently. So let's go ahead and watch the video of Tim Walz announcing these legal actions he's taking. And I think I'll have
Trisha Heaton looks great
have to wait for this to pass. Oh my gosh, I can't skip the commercial? Wow, I can't skip the freaking commercial now. Gosh, it's like a 2-minute commercial too. You got to be kidding me. Man. Well, let's take a look at the chat. Yes, Reese556 posts a link to the Glock safety system. This is why I prefer Glocks, because Glocks are not just going to automatically go off. You have to pull the trigger on a Glock. Now, this is not a Glock. This is a Canic, but it has a trigger safety system that is very similar to a Glock. You can see here, there is almost like a pre-trigger that you have to pull, and then you actually pull the trigger all the way. Now, there's not like a standard safety where you would have to, turn it off. Like a 1911 has the safety mechanism in the grip. But right here, just like a standard Glock, I've got one in my bedroom, but I don't have one right here. You've got this trigger safety mechanism. All right. Okay. Good Lord. I can't believe how freaking long that was. Okay. So here is Tim Walz.
Ordinary. We've always partnered with our federal authorities when needed, and I made the move yesterday using my executive authority to put a commission together. We are capturing all of the stories, we being the ACLU, a lot of groups, especially immigrant groups, folks at the United Nations and in Geneva are working, because what happened in Minnesota and the absolute horrific assault on this state, if this happened in another country, it wasn't that long ago that the United States was a voice of reason, decency, and human rights, we would investigate those things.
Total bullshit. The federal government is investigating, and of course the federal government has found that the ICE agents involved in the shooting deaths of Renee Nicole Good and Alex Pretty did nothing wrong. Renee Nicole Good was driving a car at the ICE agent. She had already been lawfully asked to step out of that vehicle. She was a moron, and it's very possible she could have killed that ICE agent if she would have been able to successfully drive over him. She died like she lived, like a moron. She got ventilated because she deserved to get ventilated. Alex Pretty went out that morning looking for a fight. He had a gun. Unfortunately for him, somebody shouted gun when they saw it, and people shot. Now, I'm not going to blame those guys, because in the heat of the moment, as you've got a violent suspect who is fighting back against you, he put himself in that situation. All right. Perfectly legal for him to have a gun. However, number one, he did not have his ID on him. Number two, he was hoping to be able to use it. Both Alex Pretty and Renee Nicole Good were looking to become martyrs. They became martyrs. The state of Minnesota and these 501c3s are not going to be successful. They're not going to get anything. They're not going to be able to file charges. Hopefully, by the time this is adjudicated, both Tim Walz and Attorney General Keith Ellison will have their own criminal charges against them, and then the whole thing will just go away. Now, that will happen through the brand new fraud task force, fraud strike force, I think is the actual appropriate word for it, which just convened today for the very first time, led by Vice President J.D. Vance, made up by members of President Trump's cabinet. This will allow for the intercommunication of all of these different federal agencies to bring it to a centralized location. The U.S. attorney for the strike force has been chosen by President Trump. He's been confirmed in the Senate. He is already working, and he will be the one leading the cases against the individuals at the state level, but most importantly, the individuals within state government that were complicit in allowing these fraudulent actions to take place, and for hundreds of billions, if not trillions of American dollars to be stolen, taken by these criminals, siphoned outside of the United States, moved into the campaign accounts and the personal accounts of people in government and elected government as well. So here, let's take a listen to JD.
Here's the basic problem that we've had in this government going back for probably 30 or 40 years, is that you've never had an administration that has really taken this seriously until the president put us really from day one of the Trump administration, who said, we have to take the fraud issue seriously. And a lot of the anti-fraud protections that existed in our government for a very long time were actually turned off by the Biden administration. So we think fraud has been a problem for a long time. It became a massive, massive problem under the Biden administration. We're going to do a number of things. First of all, we're going to turn back on those anti-fraud protections so that all of these cabinet officials are looking at what's going on and focusing on it. The second thing is that we're going to take a whole of government approach. So much of what's going to make the anti-fraud task force work is that we're communicating across different departments. So when Bobby Kennedy is talking to Scott Bessent about things that he's seeing in Medicare and Medicaid, when Scott is seeing things at Treasury, when Brooke is seeing things at Agriculture, when Scott is seeing things at Housing and Urban Development, what we're going to actually do is force the bureaucracy to take this seriously and work together as political principles to make sure that we stop allowing fraudsters to steal the American people's money.
So that's the first time I've ever heard that the specific mechanisms to recognize and then actually pursue fraud had actually been turned off by the Biden administration. I mean, certainly you could see during the time in Minnesota since Tim Walz came into office, the fraud major uptick, and it was just kind of allowed to take place. Part of the reason for that is that we lived in a high trust society where there was no checks. People would just self-report things, and then the bureaucrats would simply say, okay, we're going to go ahead and just believe it, despite what we're seeing, all of this money going into these various programs and little to no benefit.
Here's the basic problem that we've
as a result of it. But all of that ends right now. And most importantly, one of the major purveyors of that fraud was Ilhan Omar. But also, as a result of this fraud task force, one of the people that they are going to be looking at is Ilhan Omar herself, not only for her immigration fraud, but also for the part that she played directly in facilitating the explosion of fraud in the state of Minnesota. Here is JD again.
Talk about Ilhan Omar and Tim Walz.
Exactly.
And obviously, Ilhan Omar, the president and the White House have been out saying that she married her brother, that there is immigration fraud going on here. These are deportable denaturalization offenses. Can you give us an update on that?
Yeah, so we actually think that Ilhan Omar definitely committed immigration fraud against the United States of America. And I talked to Stephen Miller about this actually recently. We're trying to look at what the remedies are. That's the thing that we're trying to figure out is what are the legal remedies now that we know that she's committed immigration fraud? How do you go after her? How do you investigate her? How do you actually do the thing? How do you build the case necessary to get some justice for the American people? There's a related issue, Benny, which is she has been at the center of a lot of the worst fraudsters in the Somalian community. So do I know that Ilhan Omar was aware that the Quality Leering Center was defrauding the American people? I'm not certain of it, but we at least need to investigate it, because if people can commit wrongdoing without even the fear that they're going to be found out, that's a fundamental problem. So I'm worried about the immigration fraud. I'm also worried about what did Ilhan Omar know about what was happening in the Somali community? Why was nobody looking into it until, frankly, Donald Trump came along?
All right, so President Trump, he is typically speaking with strong rhetoric. He's accused Ilhan Omar of committing immigration fraud on a number of occasions. But now Vice President J.D. Vance, who just so happens to be leading the fraud task force that will be responsible for prosecuting Ilhan Omar's immigration fraud and the welfare fraud and the DHS and federal money fraud in the state of Minnesota, he's now also commented on it publicly. We know that there was evidence to show that she had committed immigration fraud, not only when she first came to the United States of America, lying about her name, lying about her age, but also participating in immigration fraud to get her brother nationalized. That's also being proven. So this is the first time that somebody with the direct responsibility of ensuring she is brought to justice, in my view, has actually spoken about it. So this is notable right here. Now, I saw somebody say something about, why was JD absent recently? I think he's been absent because he was focused solely on making sure that this fraud strike force got off the ground. President Trump signed the executive order, but he also assigned all of the various representatives of these federal agencies to create the framework to make sure that this went forward and was successful. And JD was, of course, the guy in charge of all of that. So I think that's where JD has been recently. And now that they've come to that point, they met for the first time, and now I think JD is going to be front and center on this issue. And of course, that is something that the base really wants to see addressed. I don't want any more lip service. We know that the fraud has taken place. We've already seen it exposed time and time again. We've seen Dr. Oz, RFK Jr., all of these various people going to these locations. They've identified the fraud. They've got the evidence. They can now hand it over to the strike force, and JD can be the voice for the American people, showing exactly what movement is taking place. We want to see cases. We want to see indictments. We want to see grand juries. We want to see people put in prison. And even more importantly than that, after they've been imprisoned, we want those people to be denaturalized, and we want them to be deported. And guess what? That's the next thing that we're going to hear about, because Attorney General Pam Bondi has also now commented on this publicly. We are going to be surging the denaturalization of migrant fraudsters. In fact, it's already started. Take a listen.
Push to strip criminal immigrants of their citizenship. David Spun has this story from Washington. Is it possible?
It is possible, and it's becoming a much more frequent event to see DOJ officials securing through courts the denaturalization of people who obtained U.S. citizenship through fraud or obtained citizenship by committing other crimes. Now, we have a photo of Vladimir Volgayev, a native of Ukraine who became a U.S. citizen in 2016. Federal prosecutors this week say he concealed and misrepresented his involvement in a conspiracy to smuggle more than 1,000 firearm components out of the U.S. to foreign markets. They say in 2013, he also engaged in housing benefits fraud. In another case, this woman, a Cuban native who achieved naturalization in the United States in 2007, according to prosecutors, illegally procured her citizenship, I should say, in 2017 by committing a healthcare fraud conspiracy, according to those prosecutors. Her name, Morelis Cabrera Diaz. She lives in Miami. And the third one, DOJ is filing a denaturalization complaint against this man in Miami, Alec Kassir. He's a native of Lebanon. DOJ wants to revoke his naturalization because of alleged false statements, including passport fraud. And Dana, authorities say this fraud was uncovered during a probe into alleged trafficking of counterfeit goods after he was naturalized. Since the Trump administration took over the DOJ, 11 people have successfully been denaturalized.
All right. Now, somebody says, Jane May says, not a word on arresting those who committed fraud. Not true. Every single time I see the Homeland Security investigations, FBI and DOJ arresting people, I'm telling you about it here on this show. There have been many arrests, not only in Minnesota, but also in Maine. Haven't seen any specifically coming out of Ohio, but I've also reported on several taking place down here in Florida. So there have actually been steady arrests of people who have been found to have committed fraud. Every single time I see an announcement from the DOJ of somebody getting prosecuted for this stuff, believe me, I'm bringing it to you here. So don't ever think that that's not happening, because it is happening, and it's happening all the time. Now, funny you should mention that, but I have a story coming out of Lewiston, Maine. Federal agents just arrested an individual outside of a Maine immigrant and refugee services company in Lewiston. And you can see here, that was an operation by Homeland Security Investigations. There have been an ongoing HSI and DOJ FBI operation taking place in Maine throughout this entire last several months. Also, it continues to happen in Minnesota. Take a listen.
Thursday afternoon, 210 Blake Street in Lewiston, Maine. When President Donald Trump delivered his State of the Union address recently, he specifically talked about fraud and put Vice President J.D. Vance in charge of fraud investigations.
Somali community have pillaged an estimated $19 billion from the American taxpayer. Oh, we have all the information. And California, Massachusetts, Maine, and many other states are even worse.
President Trump specifically called out Maine, and he was talking about Lewiston, Maine, as Lewiston, Maine has become the hotbed for federal and state investigations of fraud. Within just a 1-mile radius of here, you have fraud scandals going on. The Maine Wire was on scene back in December when federal agents descended upon Gateway Community Services in an attempt.
Reported on this when it happened too. So if you're not hearing about this, then you're just not watching people who are reporting on it, because believe me, it's happening. And every single time I get the opportunity to talk about it, I do, because I know how important this is, and I know how important it is to you guys as well.
To issue a warrant for a federal raid of there, because they are in front of the House Oversight Committee for fraud.
Now, this one right here, Gateway Community Services, actually led to the resignation of Delia DeLocke. She was a elected official in Maine who had previously worked at Gateway Community Services. Here she is with that Somali guy who ran for mayor of Minneapolis. Thank God he lost. He probably would have ended up getting arrested anyways. But Delia DeLocke had decided to suspend her campaign for future office because she's actually under investigation. Now, I know that people being arrested is perhaps not at the rate that people in the audience would like to see them arrested. But let me just say, it's not as simple as just going out and throwing handcuffs on somebody. You have to have a case that's being built, and you have to have a case that you can bring before a grand jury that's going to be successful. We don't just want to do this willy-nilly. We want to make sure that people are arrested and charged in such a way that they are not going to be able to beat this, and that it also leads to others being arrested as a result. Gateway Community Services is one of those organizations. The CEO of Gateway Community Services is also under indictment, but he fled the country prior to this even taking place. He's in Africa. I do not think that he is going to come back to the United States. Oh, come on. Where are we at? 106?
Thursday afternoon, I finally came to 210 Blake Street. We didn't know at the time why they came here, but they definitely came here with all of their agents and were surveying the property. Earlier this month, on 95 Park Street, not a far walk from here, federal agents descended upon Bright Futures Healthier You.
I reported on this when it happened as well.
Who has been rumored to be involved in a Medicaid scandal going on there with overbilling. Dr. Oz has come out and said that there's 100% billing rates with autism billing here in the state as well, and some organizations even here
What's
in
up,
Lewiston.
PJ?
Reviewed paperwork that was missing crucial information, like whether the kids receiving these services had been properly diagnosed with autism in the first place. 100% of the claims they examined had problems. And most troubling of all, they discovered that Maine had never conducted a statewide review of its autism program.
Now, 210 Blake Street, a lot of stuff going on here.
Now, another problem that we have, especially in Maine, is that much of this fraud that we're talking about here, all of these Somali-owned businesses, were essentially done with the knowledge of the state government of Maine, with the mayor of Maine, who is now running for Senate in Maine, which means that these people have done a tremendous amount of work to try to cover their tracks, ensure that their crimes are not directly traced back to them, or that there is, at minimum, very little paperwork. So what is really unfortunate is that it is even more difficult that way to get the people who are in government under indictment, because so much of it is laid at the feet of the Somalis that are running these organizations. I don't think that anybody should take that to mean that only the Somalis are going to be indicted. I think that ultimately they're doing everything they can to try to go after these people in government as well. Because if those people don't get indicted and prosecuted as well, then obviously they're just going to bide their time and they're going to come back with some new scam in the future.
Came here in December. Iman Osman, who was on the...
This guy reported on him as well. He was under indictment because he had given a fake address. He ran for city council. He was actually elected. And then because of the investigation and the federal charges, he was forced to actually resign his seat just a day after being sworn in. He had weapons charges. He had fraud charges. So, you know, another one you may not have heard about, but I definitely talked about it.
School committee and was a city councilor for about 48 hours when he resigned because he was brought up on gun charges, stolen gun charges, used this address when he ran for office.
That address was for a building which was officially uninhabitable. It had had a fire, and he lied. He didn't actually live there. Nobody was living there. They also had businesses operating out of there, which weren't really businesses, but that guy is being prosecuted currently.
But this address is the condemned address. This is not zoned for residential. It's not, nobody can live here. It's an inhabitable building because it's been condemned. There was a federal drug bust here in 2024. So a lot of controversy with this address. Iman Osman even lied on his bail bond from his court hearing and said that he lived here at 210 Blake Street, but you can't live here because it's condemned. His brother owns the building. His brother is Relon Osman, who owns Mears, which is just a very short walk down the street from here. Now, why is that important? Because on Monday morning, about 9:35 on Monday, federal agents detained an individual in Mears parking lot. It was rumored that it could be a member of the Osman family. We have not been able to confirm the exact identity.
Now, the reason we haven't been able to confirm the exact identity is because the DOJ, Homeland Security investigations, are operating optimally, how they are supposed to. No leaks means no leaks. Information is not supposed to get out simply because people want to have a feel-good adrenaline rush. The information is not supposed to come out until the entire thing is being settled and they have actual charges against people. If they detain somebody, if they are developing charges against somebody, then they're in the investigatory phase. And if that information gets out, then it might allow that individual or other people to potentially destroy evidence. I know that everybody is used to like everything just being broadcast because we had corrupt organizations, corrupt administrations, people who were essentially just trying to deep six investigations, make sure people could get away with things. But that's not how we're operating now.
Talked to Homeland Security, we've talked to ICE, we've talked to federal.
Dems are more than just helping the Somalis. Dems are profiting off of allowing the Somalis to defraud the government of America.
Agents. We've talked to the Lewiston Police Department. We've talked to the Agriskanda Sheriff's Department. He's not in Lewiston lockup. He's not in Agriskanda lockup. But we haven't been able to confirm who is locked up. We've got sources. We're working those sources. We're working them very hard.
Now, perhaps one of the reasons that the information hasn't been released yet is because perhaps he is cooperating. Perhaps he's giving more information. Perhaps he's negotiating to try to get reduced charges. I mean, the various businesses they have highlighted in this report have all been tied to the exact same type of fraud that we've seen in other locations. This is the same playbook. It's a blueprint that they have put in all of these different jurisdictions. And many of the Somalis in Maine are directly connected to the Somalis in Ohio, are connected to the Somalis in Minneapolis. And hi, honey. What did you do? Oh, he's sleeping. Yeah. So yes, this is one giant scam, and it's been going on for so long. People think that you need to be a genius to do this stuff, but part of the reason they've been successful is because the mechanism to identify and even investigate these fraudulent activities had been stripped away. So basically, it's like when you come home after school and you know your parents aren't going to be there, and then your dad calls and says, "I'm not even coming home tonight. I'm staying at my girlfriend's house." And you call all your buddies over, "Hey, bring a 12-pack of beer and we'll just get drunk at my place." You know, maybe you didn't have an experience like that, but I know that firsthand, all right? When you know that nobody is watching, you get to do things that you know you're not going to get caught for.
So here's the question. What were they looking for on Monday at Mears? Were they there for Mears because Mears has been caught to be found guilty of overbilling Maine Care by over $2 million? Were they there to follow up on Iman Osman's gun charges? Were they there to follow up on other fraud allegations? Or were they there for something much more sinister? We don't know at this point. We're working the story very hard, but here's
the fact that they haven't released any information yet, and this person that they arrested remains in custody without any information getting out, makes me think that it is entirely possible that this is something that is much larger, because every chance the DOJ gets to announce a new arrest, a new fraudulent business shutdown, they're doing it. Let me also deliver you some more good news in regards to Minnesota. The Department of Justice, Harmeet Dillon, has confirmed that the Minnesota Secretary of State, a Democrat by the name of Steve Simon, his entire office has just been sent subpoenas as part of a criminal investigation into voter fraud in the state of Minnesota. The Department of Justice is investigating whether or not non-citizens are currently on Minnesota's voter rolls. I think everybody here watching knows that that is exactly what is happening. The DOJ is already aware that non-citizens are on these voter rolls. They've been seeking the voter rolls of the state of Minnesota for quite some time. This is the first time that a criminally enforceable subpoena has been sent to the Secretary of State's office, the office that oversees the entire election infrastructure scam in the state of Minnesota. This is a major, major development, and I don't really see people talking about it with the level of importance that it truly has. The Secretary of State's office is now obligated to hand over all of this information, and the Department of Justice is going to find what we think they're going to find. Now, I'd also like to remind you, it's more than simply illegals being on the ballot, being on the voter rolls in the state of Minnesota. Remember when I showed you that interview with the gentleman from the Maine? Oh, Chi-Chi, careful, buddy. The interview that Sean Ryan, had done with another guy from the Maine Wire. He said, speaking with police in Minnesota, they had never been to a call for a DOA Somalian, which seems to indicate that either Somalians live forever or the Somalian community takes the bodies of Somalians and disposes of them on their own so that those people can remain alive on paper, and then they can continue to collect benefits for them, or they can continue to vote on their behalf. This is a big, big development, and I anticipate over the weekend or perhaps early next week, we're going to find out a lot more. All right, now, also, thank you so much to S2G109, who says, happy Friday, wishing everyone a safe and blessed weekend. Yes, definitely. Appreciate you being here. Yeah, I don't know if they're eating them. I don't know if they're burning. I mean, I would have to imagine there's got to be at least one Somali-owned crematorium in Minnesota. You could very easily take a Somalian body. I mean, if they live to be a ripe old age, there's not going to be much left to them anyways. They could desiccate the corpse, dry it out, or they could just immediately throw it into the crematorium and boom, you've got ashes. If they've got access to something like that, they could very easily just dispose of those ashes, or they can pass them off to somebody else. If you've ever had a loved one cremated, when you get them back, it's just a bag of bone chips and ash. You would have no idea whether or not that was your loved one or somebody else. You are just basically accepting that that person is your loved one. Thank you very much to Zeta Anon. Good to see you, homie. Thank you for the fleet. Much love. He says, love you, brother. Thank you to Sean Joe for the cookie. Also, thank you to Sean Joe for gifting a 3-month bronze tier subscription to Zeta Anon. Also gifting another one to our friend Judy the Lady Pug. I appreciate you, homie. And then Judy drops a cookie as well. So thank you very much for that generous support over there on Pilled. I really do appreciate you guys. All right. Now, do you guys remember Super Mayor Tiffany Henyard? Super Mayor Tiffany Henyard held a number of jobs in her tiny village and in the township where she previously lived in Illinois. There was a massive criminal investigation into her office. 2 of her important deputies, the chief of police and her top assistant, have both been charged in the state of Illinois by the U.S. Attorney's Office. They have turned state's evidence, and there is a very real possibility that they will be used to bring charges against now former Democrat Mayor Tiffany Henyard. Tiffany Henyard fled the state of Illinois, and she actually moved to Georgia. She's now actually running as a Republican in the state of Georgia, and she has come out publicly as a supporter of President Trump. She may like what President Trump is doing, but I tend to believe that Tiffany Henyard is making a carefully crafted calculus to try to stop herself from being charged during President Trump's administration. But she committed a lot of crimes, and if the people that committed crimes on her behalf testify against her, which I think that they will because the DOJ has charged them with felonies that could put them in prison for a long time. Bankruptcy fraud, I know, was one of them. But public corruption is what they would go after Tiffany Henyard for. So what's interesting is that now the former mayor of Dalton, Illinois, Tiffany Henyard, is running as a Republican in the state of Georgia. And she is coming out basically to support President Trump's efforts to clean up the streets of Chicago and other places because her father, sadly, was shot in the neck in Chicago. He was found in an alleyway with a bullet to his neck, CPD said. He was taken to the hospital in serious condition, and Miss Henyard has confirmed that her father is that victim. She shared on Facebook, although I am deeply saddened to have to address this issue, I want to begin by sincerely thanking everyone for the calls, messages, and prayers. During this incredibly difficult time, your support has meant more than words can express. Yes, it's true. My family has been directly affected by the senseless gun violence that continues to plague Illinois. Yesterday, my father, my hero, was an innocent victim of this random and heartbreaking violence. This tragedy has shaken my family to its core, and unfortunately, it reflects a reality that far too many families across our state are facing. This devastating moment only further highlights what many of us already know and shouldn't be ignored. The ongoing gun violence in the city of Chicago has made too many of our communities feel unsafe. It reinforces the urgent need for stronger action and meaningful solutions. I urge Governor J.B. Pritzker and Mayor Brandon Johnson to seriously reconsider that federal assistance from President Donald J. Trump to help address this crisis and better protect the residents of Illinois and particularly Chicago. Across the country, communities that have welcomed federal support have experienced measurable reductions in crime. Memphis is one of those cities. Cities like Memphis, Tennessee, Washington, D.C., New Orleans, Louisiana, during the 2026 Mardi Gras period have all seen positive outcomes through collaborative efforts. The difference between Illinois and those other states is simple. Their leadership chose collaboration, and that collaboration produced results. I respectfully urge Governor Pritzker to reconsider working in partnership with President Trump to ensure the safety and well-being of the people you were elected to serve. Once again, thank you for your prayers, your support, and your compassion. Please continue to keep my family lifted in prayer during this incredibly difficult time. Shocking to see Tiffany Henyard's father get shot like that, but it wasn't the way that I thought we were going to be talking about her next. Kitsko says, regarding missing Somalings, they are not accepting to cremation, but they are open to quick burial. They may not publicly be accepting of cremation, but if you need to get rid of a body quickly, it's an excellent way to do so. My only issue with a quick burial is that where are you going to put all those bodies? I mean, there's only so many places to bury bodies, unless maybe they are putting Somali bodies into a grave that is reserved for somebody else. That is totally plausible. Now, take a listen to this. I told you about this story when it happened. An 84-year-old man was killed when some young thug ran up and attacked him unprovoked. This happened in San Francisco, and the man was charged with murder, and the judge has just let him go, basically giving him probation. So this Superior Court activist judge has ordered the immediate release and probation of Antoine Watson. He's the man convicted of the 2021 unprovoked killing of an 84-year-old grandfather, a Thai immigrant by the name of Vicha Ratanapakdee. He was widely known as Grandpa Vicha. Judge Linda Colfax sentenced Watson to a total of 8 years, but then suspended the remaining portion of the term after giving him credit for approximately 5 years already served in the San Francisco County Jail. Watson is 25 years old. He was released to live with his mother in Hayward and to be put on 5 years probation, which includes weekly therapy sessions and regular check-ins. This was a pretty high-profile killing. It was caught on surveillance camera, and it led to a national Stop Asian Hate movement in early 2021. It didn't last very long because, of course, they didn't want to call attention to hatred that was taking place against Asian people. Take a look. Here you can see this poor man being murdered. Just ran up and smashed him to the ground, and that was enough to kill him. This punk should not be outside of a prison. All right. I don't care that he didn't kill him with a gun. I don't care that he didn't kill him with a knife. He still took a man's life. He might have been 19 years old, but you're a freaking adult at 19 years old. He ran full speed into an 84-year-old man, smashed him to the ground, and killed him as he was taking his morning walk in the Anza Vista neighborhood. He struck his head on the pavement, he lost consciousness, and it took him several days to die from his injuries. Watson was charged with murder, assault, and elder abuse to only get 8 years in prison and then to have the entirety of your sentence suspended by this judge. This judge should not be sitting on the bench. I'll tell you what, it's been suggested in the chat before, but there needs to be something done to address the judicial activism that we see taking place. There was another case that I meant to report on the other day, but I didn't get a chance to. 2 men broke into the home of a 14 or a 15-year-old boy, and they raped this child. They both did it at the same time, and they came back and they did it repeatedly. The 2 men were charged with the exact same crimes. They went before 2 different judges. One of the men received 30-plus years in prison. The other guy got probation. So that tells you everything you need to know. It depends on who your judge is, and it depends on apparently what they're okay with. But I'll tell you what, raping a child is not okay. Killing an elderly man is not okay. The jury convicted him of involuntary manslaughter and assault, but they actually acquitted him of the murder and the elder abuse charges. I don't know how they did that. So the sentencing was yesterday in San Francisco Superior Court, and Judge Colfax explained that she selected the middle term of 3 years for the assault and then 5-year enhancement for aggregating factors, which included the victim being over 70 years of age, suffering great bodily injury. But because Watson had already served more than 5 years, he was eligible for the immediate release. Colfax stated that she believed Watson's offense was connected to PTSD and trauma from his childhood, and that he had expressed remorse and he did not pose a danger to society. I guarantee you, this guy is going to get out and he's probably going to kill again. And when he does, Judge Colfax should be on the hook for anybody else that is hurt by this man. I'll tell you what, everybody's got trauma from their childhood. Everybody has had something happen to them that they could blame for their own bad behavior. But at a certain point, your behavior is on you. It's not anybody else's fault. You do not have to be a victim of your own circumstances. You do not have to take the tragic things that happen to you at some point in your life and then use that as a vehicle to victimize other people. That's a choice. There is nothing that in my book can excuse this type of behavior. I don't care what happened to this guy. And they don't bother to explain it. The judge decided that both Mr. Watson and public safety would be served by probation rather than further incarceration, noting that additional prison time would likely have a poor impact on his rehabilitation. The daughter of the murdered man, Grandpa Vicha, and other family members expressed deep disappointment outside of the courtroom. Let's go ahead and take a look. Okay, so that is the murder. Here is the young man, 25-year-old. He's a freaking adult now.
An elderly man in San Francisco faced a judge for the first time today. During an arraignment, 19-year-old Antoine Watson of Daly City pleaded not guilty. The judge asked that we not show his face, but we also heard from his...
Why not? He was 19 years old at the time he committed this killing. Why wouldn't you show his face?
Grandmother, she shouted, "I love you," as Watson was hustled out of the courtroom. Then she spoke to our cameras briefly as she left the building.
And what do you want to see happen? Him walk out this door like I'm walking out.
Watson is charged with murder in the death of 84-year-old Vicha Ratanapakdi. The brazen attack happened last Thursday morning in the Anza Vista neighborhood.
Why not? I want to hear from the family. Here is the family right here. This pisses me off so bad. I'm so sick of seeing this. I'm so sick of seeing people who should be out, productive members of society, making the world a better place. The good people always end up dying. The people who shouldn't be dead are always the ones who are dead. He is going to kill again. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. This kid's not going to learn anything. He just had 5 years of crime school. I'm sure he had traumatic things that happened to him in jail. So maybe he got turned out by a couple of prison bitches. Is he now going to use that as an excuse when he gets out to go do something terrible to somebody else? I mean, just by the very rationale of the judge, he would be able to. It wouldn't be a big problem for him. All right. Now, here is the story that I mentioned in the beginning of this of the show. I can't believe I'm not hearing any, and I'm not even seeing like American sources talking about it. This is from the Asia Times. So apparently there was a sophisticated drone attack on Barksdale Air Force Base. This is where we have the B-52 bombers, and this is in Louisiana. So Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana is in Bossier Parish. It's not very far from Shreveport, and there was a drone swarm during the month of March 9th. So this was several weeks ago. Now, the attack disrupted the B-52H aircraft launches in support of Operation Epic Fury against Iran. This is the first time that a U.S. Air Force base was actually temporarily put out of operation in wartime. That hasn't happened since World War II, so this is a pretty big deal. Now, it's crazy to me because this was drones that did this. And if you'll remember, there was also an unsubstantiated report that supposedly came from the FBI, but turned out to be fake news because I believe it was like CNN or something that had reported it, that the FBI had allegedly said there may be some type of a drone attack that would take place on a California base or California citizens. Now, the FBI came out and said that that's not something that we're actually worried about, but it appears that there actually was something like that happened down here in Louisiana. So Barksdale is the command hub of the U.S. Air Force Global Strike Command. I also want to remind you that I just told you about an IED that was placed at CENTCOM down here in Florida. We have Chinese nationals that were charged for that. The sister was arrested. The brother fled to China. But not only are the B-52s there, but the base is part of the America's Nuclear Triad. It shelters long-range nuclear missiles like the AGM-86B. It's also going to be soon housing the new long-range standoff cruise missile, and shelter and storage sites for these new missiles are currently under construction. So not the only other significant U.S. Air Force base for B-52s is Minot in North Dakota. Both of these bases are currently supporting Operation Epic Fury, and the aircraft can fly either to the UK and then to Iran, as they did during the initial period, or they fly directly from Barksdale to Iran, which is a very long mission requiring 8 in-air refuelings. Now, these drone waves lasted around 4 hours each day. This is a pretty long time for the loitering of these drones. It's not known if the drones were fixed wing or quadricopter types or how they were powered, if they had, gas or electrical. Each of the wave consisted of 12 to 15 drones, and the drones flew in with their lights on, which intentionally made them visible. Barksdale does not have air defenses, and it does not have fighter jets that can take down the drones. We don't know how big they were. We don't know how sophisticated they were. But the fact that these drones were able to were able to force the shutdown of the base to remain in the air for so long, that is very troubling. Now, the drones themselves may have been autonomous or semi-autonomous, operated in a way that suggested the drones were equipped with multiple sensors that directed their behavior of each drone over the base in response to attempt their jamming. So they were unsuccessful in the jamming, which means that they are highly sophisticated. In a nutshell, these drones that they saw operating over Barksdale were far more sophisticated than anything we've seen in Ukraine. Drones are heavily used there. The operation between Russia and Ukraine has really informed modern warfare decisions and planning related to the use of drones. They also appear to be well beyond any capabilities related to Iran. So for anybody who might be thinking that this may be an Iranian sleeper cell here in the United States, this is not technology that Iran possesses that we are aware of anyways. But the drones could be coming from another technologically capable adversary. China would be the best equipped to produce a drone of that type that could fly over Barksdale. And as we had the attack at CENTCOM yesterday that we talked about, directly related to Chinese nationals, that makes it likely that we would have 2 attacks on bases on American soil in quick succession to each other. From what was observed, the drone design surpasses almost anything in the U.S. arsenal, which also calls into question whether or not this may be related to the spate of drone sightings that we had in the New Jersey and Northeast area at the end of the Biden administration, beginning of the Trump administration. What we know is that these drones had extraordinary range, they could resist broad spectrum jamming, and they featured non-commercial signature characteristics. And even more provocatively, the drones used various ingress and egress routes and operated in dispersed patterns, making traceability via trying to triangulate on signals virtually impossible. So we don't know if the drones transmitted information while they were over the base or stored information that they transmitted later, or whether the drones may have had some type of satellite link. Basically, we don't know much of anything about these at all. One way to think about the drone waves is that these drones may be China's answer to the shoot down of their spy balloons. A critical one was blown out of the sky by an F-22 in early 2023. You guys remember that. But it flew over Maelstrom Air Force Base in Montana, which is where the Minutemen III ICBM silos are held. It flew over Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri. That is the home of the B-2 stealth bomber. And we've had a lot of serious concern about whether or not Russia might be feeding intelligence to Iran while Epic Fury is underway. That's being reported in a couple of different ways. We don't have confirmation of that, but obviously any international adversary that may be interested in getting information about the way we do business in terms of war, anybody is up for consideration at this point. But this drone swarm over Barksdale suggests strongly that likely it's China feeding Iran with critical intelligence, telling them maybe what weapons we have, when we're going to be launching, assuming that these drones came from China and were operated by Chinese or Chinese proxies. We've got little doubt that the operators were well-trained. They smuggled the equipment into the United States, and the operation was persistent and disciplined and highly sophisticated. Now, the impact of these flights was significant. The drone waves delayed critical operations in support of Epic Fury. The B-52s launched from Barksdale were carrying AGM-158 JASSM-ER weapons and GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator or bunker buster bombs. JASSM, JASSM, is standoff air-to-ground missiles that carry a 1,000-pound WDU-42B penetrator warhead. And you can see one of those penetrator warheads right there. It's a hefty boy. JASSM is classified as a low observable or stealthy weapon, and the ER version has a range of 1,000 kilometers. The GBU-57 is a 30,000-pound class munition, GPS-guided bomb. There are reports that the GBUs were used against the Talagon 2 facility at the Parchin military complex. Talagon 2 was developing nuclear triggers for Iran's nuclear bomb. Satellite imagery released on March 11th by Vantor Institute showed 3 massive, precise impact points in a neat row directly on top of the concrete shell. The size and precision of the craters is broadly consistent with the 5,000-pound GBU-72B or even maybe the 30,000-pound GBU-57B penetrators. Unlike the B-2 strikes at Fort Al, which used ventilation shafts as entry points, these strikes appear to have punched directly through the new concrete hardening to collapse the internal test chambers. And take a look right here. All right, so this is as it was being built. This is as it was covered up. And here you got plink, plink, plink going straight into the facility itself. Now, postponing the B-52 launches in Iran has more time to move critical resources out of the way. It allows them to perhaps get things that they don't want to be destroyed out. While we don't know, it's possible that the drones did not just fly over or take pictures, but may have intercepted war plans and command and control operations. That would be obviously highly valuable. Barksdale is in a congressional district that's represented by none other than Speaker of the House Mike Johnson. Now, aside from Barksdale, we've had the other drone incidents that were focused on U.S. strategic and leadership assets. You remember between December of 2023 and June of 2025, somebody was launching 17 nights of drone swarms at Langley in Hampton, Virginia. One result of the swarms is that US F-22 stealth jets had to be relocated as we believe they were under threat. There were reports that some of the drones used in the attack were over 20 feet long and flew at over 100 miles per hour. In late 2024 and into 2026, there were persistent sightings over Edwards Air Force Base, Plant 42 in Palmdale, California. This is where Skunk Works is located. Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, and Boeing all operate at that site. They're working on highly classified projects. Definitely advanced technology is being tested there. Between March 10th and 20th of this year, there were also several unidentified drones that flew over Fort Leslie J. McNair in Washington, D.C. Both Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Secretary of War Pete Hegseth currently live on the base, so that suggests that an unknown adversary may have been targeting or tracking them. The U.S. does have counter-drone capabilities, including high-powered microwave systems, but these are only just now becoming available and coming online. They're pretty big units, and they take up to a 20-foot shipping container for transit, and they will also need trained operators and some integration with base radar and command centers. There are still other products that are emerging from the Air Force, maybe some that have not publicly been acknowledged yet, other laboratories that are pumping out technologies that can provide some protection, but realistically, we may be years away from a real domestic counter-drone capability because there was virtually nothing that was done during the Biden administration. Let me say thank you to Will to Push Forward. Zach, Turdo sold ITF Technologies to China. They specialize in advanced satellite comm technology involving particle flow. From what I learned, they specialize in research for particle weapons. I'm not familiar with them, but I will go ahead and copy this and take a look at it. That is certainly something to dive in on. So yes, this drone swarm at Barksdale is rather notable, and I think it's a pretty big deal. The fact that nobody is talking about it makes it even more of a big deal because this is the kind of thing that you really don't want to get out there on a wide-scale basis, but it's something that I think everybody needs to be aware of. Thank you very much to Sean Joe, who says, Zach, look into Muslim rituals about burying the dead. I bet no Muslim who dies of natural causes is reported. You know, I would not be surprised, to be honest with you. Sean Joe also says the drone swarm is probably the same as the drones in New Jersey near me, Picatinny Arsenal. This is training, I bet. Could be training, but it's not being reported as training. And the drones that were swarming in New Jersey never really were explained either. That would be the best bet. But the only reason I don't think they're training is because they actually disrupted operations that were taking place at that point. If these were training operations that were being conducted by elements of the U.S. government, they would have been done at a time that wouldn't disrupt the current operations taking place in Iran or the Middle East. All right. Now, remember the story from California that the Justice League, what was their name? I think that they were just called the Justice League, but it was Cam Higbee and a guy from TPUSA and James O'Keefe. They were all, and Muckraker. They were all doing their individual investigations on the use of voter information to fraudulently sign petitions that would then go on the ballot, and people were paying homeless people. There was an African who had a company that was paying people big money to get these signatures. One of the people who was being paid has come forward as a whistleblower to explain how these groups are getting the information. And guess what? It's coming directly from the state of California. That's right. They are just handing over voter registration lists. These are the same lists that California is fighting the DOJ and not wanting to hand over so that Department of Justice, Harmeet Dillon, and the Civil Rights Division can ensure that dead people and illegals are not on the voter rolls. But of course, when they're being used for fraudulent activity, they are perfectly fine giving that out. Now, initially, the person who came forward as the whistleblower, his face was visible, but it looks like Cam Higbee has since hidden his face. And I would imagine that's probably because this guy is now on a couple of Deadpool lists. So anyways, Essentially, Cam Higbee working alongside the Citizens Justice League. That's what it is. This includes James O'Keefe, Savannah Hernandez, and then the people I mentioned before. They spent weeks disguised as homeless people on Skid Row so that they could capture the reports that we've brought you here in the last week and a half. So in part 2 of that Cash for Ballot series, O'Keefe and Cam Higbee captured hidden camera footage of petitioners paying desperate homeless people $2 to $3 per forged signature to impersonate real registered voters. They had lists that were already printed showing the names, addresses, and information of California voters. And then they would essentially give a homeless person a name. They would give them a stack of ballot petitions, and that homeless person would fill in the personal identifying information of whomever it was they had essentially been assigned. And then they would get $2 or $3 per petition. So circulators would hover over these signatures. They would make sure that the homeless people that were forging this information got the names and the handwriting just right before handing over the cash. So O'Keefe and Higbee went door to door to the addresses of these people. I showed you that video as well. The longtime residents of these homes had no idea that their information had been used. Some of these people that were having their names used didn't even actually live at these locations anymore. They had moved away a long time ago. No idea whether or not they still live in California or if they had moved to other states. But of course, one of the reasons they don't want to hand over the voter list to the DOJ is because ultimately they will determine that many people who are on the voter lists are not legally on those lists. So you can see all of these various reports. If you go to Cam Higbee's page, I can't remember the guy from TPUSA. Savannah Hernandez has a couple of videos as well. Obviously, Muckraker and O'Keefe Media Group. And during an interview with Alex Jones, O'Keefe said that he and Higbee had obtained this whistleblower testimony. This interview was released yesterday, and the person admitted everything that the company that they work for is doing, exactly how they're doing it, and the entire scam. He basically laid it all out. So basically, Cam Higbee found that gangbangers obtain these lists of names from the voter registration office, and then they distribute those names to the petitioners on the street. So that means 100% that someone or some people within the election system itself are assisting these people and making this fraud possible. Now, here, we're going to watch a 1-minute clip, and I encourage you to go watch the entire report because it's crazy.
How do you decide whether somebody uses their name or somebody else's name?
Well, I ask them some questions like, when are you registered to vote? And if they remember something, like, okay, then I just let them go. You know what I mean? I let them sign. But if they don't remember or they from out of state, the gangbanger guys, they'll give us you know, a list of names. I mean, not a list, but they'll write it on a piece of paper or whatever. And I just give it to them, you know.
So when they pull the people's names, like when people don't have their
I have
address,
no idea where they get it from.
Where do you think they get it from?
They get it from the registration office. They pay a lot of money from the registration office directly.
Like the state?
Yeah.
Wow, really?
Yeah. The registration office is corrupt as hell. But it's legal though. What they're doing, getting it is legal because you can legally do it, but it's a lot of money you got to pay to get the system. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they can just pull, is it like a voter registration or a DMV or something?
Yeah. No, it's
So I know in Michigan, they called it the QVF, the Qualified Voter File. And I ran for city council many years ago, and so I had to pay to get the voter file of all of the registered voters for the area that I was running for. And that allowed me to go out and talk to every single registered voter and tell them who I was and why I was running and, you know, ask them to vote for me. So that part is legal. But of course, there is an exchange of value for it. And that would ultimately mean, as stated before, that somebody is funding this operation because gangbangers are not just going to go out and pay for these voter files and get these names if they're not getting something out of it. They also have to fund it with someone. There has to be an exchange of value outside of the people in the voter office. And you would think that the people in the voter office would probably be interested to know why people are getting this information. I mean, they do hand it out if you pay for it, but they also want to know exactly what you're going to be using it for. Makes sense to me, too. Says, our president is leaving Miami airport. I can never get close to Air Force One, of course, but I can see his limo and 30-car convoy arrive from the plane from afar. Safe travels, sir. Mr. President, please fly safe. We would, of course, be devastated if anything happened. I think President Trump is well protected, but continue to pray for him every single time he travels. That man is a beast.
Voter registration office.
Oh, they get it right from the
Straight from there.
Wow.
Yeah. It's corrupt as fuck.
That is crazy.
So my question is, how are these people presenting themselves? Do they have some specific affiliation with the Democrat Party? Are they on? Let's actually look it up. Let's look it up and see in California what is required to purchase the voter files. What is required in California to purchase voter lists? Come on, really? Let's go to Yandex. In California, what is required to purchase voter lists? Okay. Elections and voter information. No, that's just how to vote. Voter lists, what are they? That's from the Department of Justice. Okay, that's Louisiana. Purchase voter lists. I would imagine it's probably going on. A database of public information and registered voters is only available for purchase using specifically designed selection criteria. I would imagine that even though this is Louisiana, the same is true for California. The voter list is available through email as a PDF or a delimited text file. In addition, printable address labels are available. And in order to purchase in Louisiana, you have to go through an online application. Let's just take a look. Oh, you have to register, so I can't do that. Okay, so purchase voter lists, California. Now, theoretically, if this is a large-scale operation that is being done through, say, a nonprofit organization, that nonprofit organization may have already gone through the application process, and they send in somebody who works for them, or at least is getting paid for them. Maybe they're an independent contractor. Maybe they're just getting paid under the table. And that person would then tell the voter, tell the voter office, hey, I'm with this organization. We have the approval to get this. Okay. California Secretary of State, publicly available website. That's to register a complete index of voter registration records. VoteCal maintains all the voter information in all 48 counties. List maintenance, assist county officials, guidance documents, reports. Well, they certainly don't make it simple. So these people have obviously got a, there are also all these third-party vendors that do it, but the man that was the whistleblower said that they're not doing that. They're actually getting it directly from the office. Now, okay, well, let's go to LA County, Los Angeles County, countyoffice.org. Okay, this is not what I thought it was going to be. Yeah, so again, this is a sophisticated operation. They know exactly what they're doing. They've got a process, and somebody is paying for it. We need to identify every single organization that's paying for it. If you want to watch the full interview that Cam did with this guy, it's about 17, 18 minutes. I'm going to drop it into the chat. I would just ask that you wait until after the show. We're almost done here. And then you can go ahead and watch it when you're done. Okay.
How do you decide whether...
All right, next, we'll go ahead and skip the Francis Scott Key Bridge. this is interesting, but don't need to talk about it very long. So yesterday in the cabinet meeting, Sean Duffy had revealed that the former Secretary of Transportation under Joe Biden, Pete Buttigieg, had changed the rules. Much like all of the other federal agencies, they had removed the safeguards and the investigative processes to identify fraud. Pete Buttigieg had done the exact same thing at the Department of Transportation. Rather than actually certifying these trucking companies, the administration changed the rules to allow the trucking companies to just make the claim of their own proficiency to self-certify. So basically, when you go to a trucking school, you're paying that trucking school to put you through the paces and teach you how to drive, and then you get your CDL. You are doing that under the assumption that that trucking school has the necessary certification, knowledge, and know-how to be able to properly teach you how to do that. What these trucking companies were doing as a result of Pete Buttigieg is really not training anybody to do anything. They would simply self-certify to the federal government saying like, oh, we have the skills, we have the knowledge, we have the ability to teach people. And rather than doing that, they would just take the money for the classes and then just give people a CDL. And of course, it was far more successful in places like California, Pennsylvania, etc. Also, you may remember this woman from Chicago. She is a city councilman. They call it an alderman. Her name is Sheridan Gorman. She's the one who claimed that the young woman who was murdered by what is now known to be a Tren de Aragua gang member with tuberculosis, she claimed that that young woman was in the wrong place at the wrong time, basically blaming her for walking down the street while a white woman at 1 a.m. She was on the pier at Rogers Park, and this 25-year-old illegal alien by the name of Jose Medina, the name so nice they said it twice. He was illegally here from Venezuela. He just ran up and shot this young woman and killed her. It was probably some type of a gang initiation action. Now, he had previously been apprehended by the U.S. Border Patrol in May of 2023. Biden regime just let him go, and then he flew off into the sunset. Now, this woman has received a lot of flack as a result of making that callous statement. And she has now, as a result of the outcry from the public, been forced to close her office down because the only calls she was getting was from people who were upset that she is a terrible, terrible person. Thank you to Patrick D35. Purchase voter and election data from the Registrar of Voters. That's in Santa Clara County. Okay, so there we go. This is the process in Santa Clara County. Let's take a look. Francis Scott Key Bridge is still not built. Okay, so it can be provided to a candidate for office, a ballot measure committee. That's going to be the way that they're doing it. Or other person for election, journalistic, scholarly, political, or governmental purposes, as defined by California section. You need driver's license and social security numbers, or the signatures as shown on the voter registration card cannot be released to preserve the confidentiality of the voter. Commercial use of voter registration information is prohibited by law. So yes, so the ballot measure committee is the way that they're getting through. So clearly, again, this is being done with a lot of money. There is a ton of cash that is coming into these organizations that are pushing for these ballot measures. And once they're registered, they're able to just get the data. And they go from county to county to county. Okay. Thank you so much for that, Patrick. I appreciate that. All right. Now, yesterday, we had reported that President Trump had allegedly requested that before a security guarantee could be given to Ukraine, we wanted the Ukrainian soldiers in the disputed regions in the eastern portion of the country, in the Donbass and Zaporozhye and Luhansk, to withdraw. Now, allegedly, that claim actually came from Volodymyr Zelensky himself, but it's actually incorrect. President Trump has not requested that. He has simply requested that a withdrawal happen as part of a peace plan. Now, Secretary Rubio called Volodymyr Zelensky a liar and said that that report was actually fake news.
The U.S. tells Zelensky that security guarantees depend on withdrawal from Donbass.
That's a lie. And I saw him say that, and it's unfortunate he would say that because he knows that's not true, and that's not what he was told. What he was told is the obvious. Security guarantees are not going to kick in until there's an end to it. Otherwise, you're getting yourself involved in the war. Okay, what is a security guarantee? It is troops that are willing to step in and secure. If you put that in place now, that means you're injecting yourself in the war. What he was told very clearly, and he should have understood it, is that the security guarantees come only after there is an end to the war. But that was not attached to unless he gives up territory. I don't know why he says these things. They're just not true.
What is the U.S. position on Donbass?
We've told the Ukrainian side what the Russians are insisting on. We're not advocating for it. We've explained it to them. It's their choice to make. It's not for us to make for them. We've never told them they have to take it or leave it. The role we have played is to try to figure out what both sides want and see if we can bridge the middle ground. The decision ultimately is up to Ukraine. If they don't want to make certain decisions or certain concessions, then the war keeps going.
Now, the Donbass does not want to be part of Ukraine. They've already voted for secession. This happened years ago after the Maidan Revolution, which was a color revolution that was funded and perpetrated by the State Department, the Central Intelligence Agency, and a whole host of 501c3 nonprofit organizations. Those disputed regions have long sought to be separate from Ukraine. And there were a series of atrocities that took place in the eastern portion of the country. The Western-backed government in Kiev was routinely bombing civilian areas. There were women, there were children, there were schools that were hit. It was quite literally atrocity after atrocity. These were war crimes by any other measure. And certainly if this would have been another nation, not a nation that was being propped up by Western European governments that wanted to see Russia be an adversary, then they would have been called war crimes. Now, Russia stepped in. Russia sought to protect those regions. Those regions asked for the protection. Russia is not demanding that Ukraine give those regions to Russia. They are demanding the withdrawal so that those nations can be free and autonomous and maintain their own sovereignty. Russia will give security guarantees to those disputed regions. Ultimately, the NATO and the United States will give security guarantees to Ukraine. But like Marco Rubio said, it's not going to happen until the war ends, because otherwise we're going to get dragged in. That's exactly what Zelensky wants. Zelensky knows that this is a losing battle. He also knows that if he is to bring this war to an end, his utility ends. Zelensky will not be president. Ukraine will go into the hands of somebody else. The process of rebuilding it will be given to somebody else. Zelensky will be remembered as the man who pretty much broke Ukraine up and destroyed it and killed many, many people. And he simply doesn't want that. He's a narcissist and he's a coke addict. So he continues to push it. Now, also, yesterday we told you about the newly released information that came from Tulsi Gabbard and the Office of Director of National Intelligence, which said that Ukraine taking USAID money with the assistance of USAID to funnel into the campaign coffers of Joe Biden in 2022. Well, that apparently happened. We don't know if the money actually was transferred, but Hungary and Viktor Orban, who is also being attacked by the European Union and Western nations who are aligned against Russia, he's revealed that the Zelensky government did the exact same thing for the Kamala Harris campaign. So it's more likely now that billions of dollars were funneled from USAID through Ukraine into the Biden campaign and then continued for a series of years and ultimately continued into Kamala Harris's run for president. Now, Viktor Orban gives this announcement in Hungarian, so I'm going to translate. He said, yesterday it was revealed that President Zelensky directed money to the pro-Ukraine candidate in the U.S. presidential election against Donald Trump. In other words, Ukrainian funds were used to support the Democrats' campaign. They are now doing the same thing in Hungary. They want a pro-Ukraine government. They are sending Ukrainian agents, and they are helping the pro-Ukraine opposition. The investigation into the Ukrainian gold convoy has also uncovered that money was not only flowing from the West to Ukraine, but into the opposite direction as well. In other words, from impoverished Ukraine, billions of dollars were continuously transported. Come on. 36 seconds. Were continuously transported westward through Hungary. We also know that much of this money was transferred to the United States. Nothing is too costly for President Zelensky. He pays in Ukrainian gold and dollars those who are willing to support Ukraine's war. We will put an end to this in Hungary. Okay, so I'm almost positive that that Hungary has already given this information to the United States government. And certainly anything related to Ukraine, USAID, funneling money into a political campaign here in the United States, that's going to become a bargaining chip. I have no reason to doubt that this was taking place, especially considering the fact that the ODNI has confirmed it. But that means it's even more dangerous for Zelensky to bring the war to a conclusion, bring peace to the region, because he will absolutely be in a very uncomfortable political situation. Now, yesterday, I also told you about the report that Jeffrey Epstein worked as an agent of the former Saudi Arabian government to stop the United States victims of 9/11 from being able to bring court cases against Saudis who may have been involved. Now, before we bring you this clip right here, I do have one more special message from our friends over on Rumble. All right, you guys, banks are not your friends. They can freeze your accounts. They can shut off your cards. They can lock you out of your money overnight because they do not protect you. Banks control you. And that's why real financial freedom starts with ownership. So introducing the Rumble Wallet. It's a non-custodial wallet built for people who refuse to give up control. And with Rumble Wallet, you don't just buy digital currency like Bitcoin and Tether. You can also own Tether Gold, which is real gold on the blockchain. Through Tether Gold, you get direct ownership of physical gold bars, each one fully allocated, verifiable by serial number, purity, and weight. It's not paper gold. It's not an IOU. It's real gold without bank vaults, storage fees, or gatekeepers. So you save money and you get gold. You can buy it, sell it, or move it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even when traditional gold markets are closed. And if you want, Tether Gold can also be redeemed for that physical gold. That is powerful. And when you support creators on Rumble, you can tip them directly using Rumble Wallet, peer-to-peer, outside the banking system, with no permissions or middlemen or cancel button, because the wallet is yours forever. You can get it at wallet.rumble.com in the App Store on your device or through the QR code you see on screen. Thank you very much to Rumble. All right, so let's take a look at this. Essentially, we have confirmation now that Jeffrey Epstein was working with one of his best friends, former Obama White House counsel Kathy Rumler, and now deceased special counsel Ken Starr. They were blocking 9/11 family lawsuits against Saudi Arabia before President Trump's inauguration in 2016. Apparently, they were very urgent to make sure that things got locked up in court, because they were afraid that once President Trump came in, he would essentially push this forward because of his direct connection to 9/11, obviously being a New Yorker. So what they wanted to do was to prevent any citizens of the United States from getting any type of reparations that might be awarded as a result of 9/11. So a Saudi embassy spokesperson has been given questions about the former Saudi government's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. There has been no no comment on this yet. The estate of Jeffrey Epstein has not responded. A spokesperson for Kathy Rumler, however, has responded. And they said Miss Rumler did not take any action in either a professional or personal capacity related to Justice Against Sponsors of Terrorism Act, the 9/11 families or their ability to sue Saudi Arabia. She was never asked to take any action on this matter and never did. Ms. Rumler welcomes the opportunity to appear before the committee. I believe she's being subpoenaed. At the time she interacted with Jeffrey Epstein, she was a practicing criminal defense attorney and shared a client with him. She has done nothing wrong and had no knowledge of any ongoing criminal activity on his part. Well, they actually spoke about Jeffrey Epstein's predilection for young girls, if I'm not mistaken. We spoke about that. All right, now, here is a gentleman that Catherine Herridge is talking to, discussing this scheme.
When you read the email, what you see here is Epstein is referring to what appears to be the legislation here, which would allow the families to sue Saudi Arabia. He says it's got to be translated ASAP, and that Kathy Rumler, who had been counsel for President Obama, and Ken Starr, they're going to be sort of the lead in charge of that. What does that tell you?
There's timing involved in this too, because that email was on November 27th, 2016. By that time, we knew who the next president of the United States was going to be. And I think there was a sense of urgency to get certain things done before Trump came into his first term. I don't want to say I'm confused, but I'm confused as to what their motives were in terms of doing this. Why would you work with a country to prevent United States citizens from getting reparations based on the 9/11 attacks?
Well, I have one email here, which is, the subject line is Ken Starr. It specifically references this legislation, JASTA, which is Justice Against Sponsors of Terrorism. And I haven't been able to find emails specifically about Catherine Rumler engaging. Did you see anything?
No, I don't know if this clip specifically mentions the Shadow 9/11 Committee, but we have spoken about that before, and I showed the email. When the files first came out, I was able to find that. But yes, that Shadow 9/11 Commission, we don't exactly know what that referred to. Was that a secret 9/11 Commission that was doing the real investigation to determine who truly was culpable, not only within our own government, but also foreign governments? Was it a commission that was working to simply derail the actual 9/11 Commission, which, for all intents and purposes, didn't need a whole lot of help screwing itself at the end of the day, because it was not truly convened to get to the bottom of anything. It was also, in and of itself, a sort of shadow commission meant to cast a shadow over any specific truth that might come out.
Related to that?
Not in the Tron.
So Mohammed bin Salman was not in power yet at this time. This was still when the Al-Walid bin Talal faction was in power, because it was only after President Trump came to power, if you'll remember, that the Saudi purge happened. And of course, that coincided with the actions that took place in Las Vegas, the Las Vegas shooting. So at this time, it would have been Jeffrey Epstein working with bin Talal or others associated in that Saudi government. And remember, they were also directly connected to Hillary Clinton. So this is undoubtedly deep state Saudi government, very different from the Saudi government that's in power right now.
Of documents we looked at, you'll get a certain amount of information out. People will rush to a narrative and a conclusion before we have all the facts.
Well, you can see from the dates that they're moving very quickly. Everything's happening within.
And I think a lot of that had to happen before January 20th. 2017.
New administration.
Yes.
Trump administration.
And we, again, not being political, but it's kind of like Trump had a different view on some of these things than some of his predecessors did. So that's why I thought there was this sense of urgency. Is why get this done now? It's because we have a new president coming in.
And we know Jeffrey Epstein hated Donald Trump. He was afraid of Donald Trump. He wanted to do whatever he could to try to block Donald Trump from being successful. Now, here's an interesting report. I can't verify its legitimacy, but someone has come forward to the Daily Mail and suggested that there was a tense conversation between J.D. Vance and Benjamin Netanyahu. Allegedly, J.D. Vance accused Netanyahu of being overly optimistic about the chances of regime change in Iran. This call supposedly took place on Monday. And, of course, there's been a lot of conversation about the conflicting feelings that JD allegedly has with regards to Iran and, the administration, the actions they're taking. Now, JD has said publicly, you support the president. I am the vice president. I support the decisions of the president. But I could see him having a tense conversation with Netanyahu because Netanyahu and Israel, their goal in the war is not the same as the United States. In the last 24 hours, the Israeli military has taken out a series of critical infrastructure targets inside Iran, and they even took out a yellow cake production facility, which has the potential to create nuclear signature, essentially poisoning the area and irradiating the area. And the United States had no knowledge or participation in this. There have been a lot of people online saying Donald Trump has lost his freaking mind. He just blew up a nuclear facility, which is going to cause nuclear fallout. And a lot of people are sick, but it wasn't us. It was Israel. Israel is acting as their own group and with their own methods and their own decision making. And when they do things that have specifically pissed off President Trump, he has said so. He just said publicly that we weren't going to be hitting any infrastructure targets because we were directly negotiating with with Iran. He said yesterday that Iran just gave us those 10 ships filled with Iranian oil. So there was no reason for us to do that. It was all on Israel. So essentially it's being said that Bibi told the United States that this was going to go very quickly. It hasn't happened that way, but it would appear that the United States is in a good negotiating position right now. Don't know if that happened. Maybe we'll find out about it. But I did see this story also coming from an Israeli IDF chief. He's saying that the IDF could collapse due to lack of manpower. Now, if you don't know, Israel has forced conscription. Unless you are a Hasidic. If you are Hasidic, then you don't have to actually join the military, but everybody else does. Now, they're also forcing people who were previously in the military to rejoin the military. That's causing a major economic destructive point in the Israeli society because people who own businesses are being pulled away from that and things are closing. It's putting them into a difficult position. And at the center of this argument is Eyal Zamir. He's the highest ranking military officer and the current commander of the entire IDF. He was speaking during a closed-door meeting in, I believe, the Knesset, and he said that the army is basically approaching a breaking point. He says that the Israel Defense Forces could collapse upon themselves if urgent reforms are not implemented. The only reforms they could make would be to force more people to join the IDF. And there's only so many people that they could force to join the IDF. He said, I am raising 10 red flags in front of you. He said, without immediate legislative action on conscription, reserve duty, and service length, the military's ability to function will deteriorate rapidly. So this is obviously coming as they continue to hit more targets. They hit, obviously, Lebanon recently. They've attacked Syria. They have been continuing to attack Iran. And they only have so many reserves, and they only have so many eligible men that they can pull in. This is kind of getting to the same type of situation that Ukraine is in. So it's no wonder that you continue to hear these so-called rumors that President Trump is going to send ground forces in. I think that Israel would like nothing more than for the U.S. to send in ground forces because it's not something that they themselves could do. By all appearances, despite how many times the IGRC and the Iranian military has been hit, the nation of Iran still continues to plug along, and their military appears to be in relatively good fighting condition. So all the more important that they stop blowing things up that the new nation of Iran is going to need to function and allow President Trump to continue with the peacemaking process. Now, yesterday we spoke about the soon-to-be irrelevant United Nations, and now that the United Nations is suing the government of the United States along with Minnesota, and they have just passed a resolution demanding countries linked to slavery pay trillions of dollars in reparations, I see a very possible upcoming exit from the United Nations for the United States of America, because they are calling on nations like Britain and others that were involved in transatlantic slave trade to come to the table and pay reparations to countries who were apparently the victims of slavery. And it would run into the trillions of dollars. Now, this was a motion that was introduced by Ghana on behalf of the African Union, calling slave trade the gravest crime against humanity. Now, this non-binding resolution was passed by 124 yes votes to 3 no votes. United States, Israel, and Argentina voted against it. The UK abstained alongside 52 other countries, including all European Union member states. In supporting the resolution, member states affirmed the importance of addressing historical wrongs affecting Africans and people of African descent. Of course, they didn't mention anything about the current and ongoing slave trade in the African nation of Libya, or the prior global slave trade that existed for generations prior to the institution of the Atlantic slave trade. They are only going after certain countries, and this is just an extension of the same type of grift that we have seen time and time again. The United States may be brought to the table being asked by African nations to contribute to reparations, but that shit is not going to happen. And there's a reason that USA did not vote in favor of this. If it is non-binding, it will require countries to agree to pay in. But if there is a lot of pressure coming from the United Nations, all we need to do is say, you know what? We don't need you. We got the Board of Peace. There is no reason for us to continue being part of an organization that does nothing to advance the many different issues that the various organizations President Trump has created can go ahead and do. Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer is in the chat. Oh, my God. Good to see you, Keir. Unfortunately, it looks like your country might be on the hook for reparations for the North Atlantic slave trade. Good luck to you, buddy. All right. Finally, I would like to end with a pretty crazy video. A trans lawyer in Oklahoma could not keep her mouth shut. I say her, it looks like a man. It's a woman who is dressed as a man, who has apparently transitioned, living as a man, practicing law as a man for some time. But as soon as the judge starts putting them in their place, he starts acting like a woman. You guys have seen it before. You have seen how women will oftentimes act in positions of authority when they think their shit doesn't stink. They get an attitude, and they, whether it's a judge or the police, but basically this lawyer won't stop interrupting the judge, and the judge has them arrested and has them held in contempt. This is a hilarious video. Let's go ahead and watch.
I pointed you to the exact paragraph. It's her education.
Stop.
Stop because you don't want to hear
Oh,
what the
stop!
argument is.
Stop! You interrupt me one more time, you are being held in direct contempt of court, and
Yes,
you can
ma'am.
wipe that smirk off.
I don't
your
have a
face.
smirk on my face.
Oh, yes, you
I do not.
I am not going to tolerate this from you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Fill out the request, get the form from our court clerk's office on the second floor, make sure it comports with what you've brought already, get it filed, mailed in, whatever you need to do. Let us assess her request. If it's
My client's not seen her child. There is no order in this court, and there's been no jurisdiction found that this court has jurisdiction.
Now, let me give you a little bit of context. This lawyer is representing a woman who didn't show up to court. She didn't show up to court because if she did show up to court, she would be arrested. There is a warrant out for her arrest. And the behavior of her lawyer is unconscionable. This is not how you behave in a courtroom. I have had the opportunity to witness many different courtroom situations. And this is totally outside the boundaries of anything that makes sense. You have to believe that this person's mind is a little bit twisted, and that has something to do with the attitude. But also, obviously, being a leftist, being a female leftist who is also on testosterone, this person's brain is not operating correctly.
Over this child.
Oh, yes, and these are the same people right here. This is that woman before she transitioned into this guy down here, and now he's got a beard. But of course, wants to be treated as a man up until the moment that the cops are arresting him, and then wants to be treated like a woman.
Who has never lived in your county. Never lived. I did not. There was a pause. There was a break. I wasn't done with my arguments.
And I was not done with my statement. You interrupted again. Do not.
Tossed the phone on the floor like a petulant child.
I did not throw it. It fell off the bench. Please stop stating things that are not true, ma'am.
Gaslighting like a typical liberal.
I put it down. I did. I put it down and it fell down. I did not fall.
Never touched the top of the desk. Just threw it on the ground.
I'm not upset, and I'm not arguing. You're not letting me make an argument. I'm not red in the face, ma'am. I'm not.
So our court reporter cannot get what we're both saying.
And the prosecutor is like, "Are you kidding me? Like, really? Really?"
I am trying to make my argument. You interrupted my argument halfway through on an objection.
That will get every available deputy.
Yes, ma'am. I'm aware. It's happened to me before.
It's happened to me before. He knows better. She knows better. It knows better.
Yes.
Yes.
Because you're out of line.
Yeah,
Of course.
I guess so.
Okay. If I push that
Or maybe
button-
because I'm a transgender attorney practicing all over the state.
I don't know what you are.
You do, ma'am. It's not. You do.
I don't know whether
You do,
you're
ma'am. You
transgender,
do. You
other
do.
than you have just now
No,
advised me,
ma'am.
and
You
that
do.
doesn't have
You
anything
do.
to do
It's happened
with
when we
anything.
talked on the phone.
That wasn't talking, let me tell you. You were entirely inappropriate.
You were yelling
or
at
so,
me, and I did not even know you were the judge.
And I didn't know you from Adam.
I
at
said,
that
my name
point.
is Rob Hopkins. I'm
Which
an
doesn't
attorney
mean
in
anything.
Oklahoma City.
No, sir, you did not.
Okay.
Okay?
There's no one there to know that, right?
Okay. So we are pausing this until you get the ADA request.
And personally, I cannot believe that the judge has allowed it to go on this long. You have to believe it's because of this person's transgender status, because they have some special status that they hold. And they know it. They're using it. That's why they invoked it. It really, at the end of the day, has nothing to do with anything related with this case. But of course, the person wants to play that card. It's the same as playing the race card or anything related to that.
This form filled out and it gets processed.
So we're going to pause the hearing on jurisdiction that's been set twice. I drove an hour and a half to have the hearing. My client's available telephonically, and we are simply not even taking testimony.
Is your client available telephonically?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Well, then get her on the phone.
Thank you.
Your Honor, to which we would object. This is as clear as the nose on my face that this woman will not appear before this court because she has a warrant for stealing
Objection, hearsay. That's not true. And you're ready
You
to
will find, sir,
Don't
that
put at me. It's over
me.
Or shout at me.
I'm not putting down. No, we're stopping.
Get out of my face,
I've
sir.
been in it for a long
Get out of
time.
my face, sir.
You may step
Get
out.
out of my face.
You should leave this county.
Get out of my face. Get out of my face.
People, my friend, you're being ugly.
And get out of my face.
Yeah, it's too late
Why?
now.
Because you're in direct contempt of court.
He shouted at me. No, I'm not being. You did not even say that I was in
You are
contempt.
in direct.
No, I'm not.
I just said you're in direct contempt. This is it. This is your warning, and this is your announcement.
Judge, I apologize, but I felt very threatened by this person. The screaming and the yelling in court, I've never even heard that before in this courtroom.
Now, there's another lawyer from the prosecution team who's at the table back there and says, you know, we've dealt with this individual before. This is their pattern of behavior. Don't feel safe. Just get them out of here. Thank you, Your Honor.
Do not hurt me. Do not hurt me.
Your hands behind your back.
Do not. Are you throwing me over this?
Stop resisting.
I'm not resisting.
Okay. Put your hands behind your back.
I'm not resisting.
I'm not
You know exactly what's
Why
happening.
don't you all walk that way sometime?
I can't walk. I'm being thrown down.
Just settle down, walk that way.
Settle down. Do not grab me. Do not grab me. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? You're hurting me. You're hurting me. You need to take me. You don't take me. You don't need me. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe.
Put your hands behind your
I
back.
cannot breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe.
I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Stop resisting. That's all you got to do. That's all you got to do. You caused the whole thing. I don't know. They're obviously getting more than just obstruction charges. They're likely going to get charged for assaulting a police officer. They might even lose their law license after this.
Help! Somebody call 911! Please! 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 Ow! Ow!
No need to call 911. We're here right now.
Ow! 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 Ow!
Homeboy's like, what the heck's going on?
Somebody call 911! Somebody call 911! Somebody call... I got your phone now.
Oh my God. How exhausting. I mean, just we're so sick of this stuff. Stop acting like a child. Stop acting in this manner, and you won't be treated in that manner. Tell your dog I'm sorry, Nuke.
All right, we're gonna pick you up. Roll on the side. No, I don't. Get a female officer now. Get a female officer now.
But you're a man. Why would we get a female officer? Well, there are no female officers here.
Get a female officer now. There aren't any. I can't get up. I can't see. He just threw my glasses. I can't see. Give me my glasses. Put them on my face. No. Put them on my face. I cannot see. Please give me my glasses. I cannot see. I'm not trying to walk and I cannot see. I need my wallet.
Thanks, Robert.
Thanks, Robert.
Thanks, guys.
I'm trying to walk.
Oh, thank you guys. Appreciate the assist. Oh my goodness. Absolutely shocking display of immaturity. Why can't people just act like humans? Well, after many, many years of being placated and essentially allowed to act in that way, that's what happens. All right, you guys, before we go, my friends over at Rumble would like you to know about 1775 coffee, because if you still haven't tried it yet, you do have an opportunity. I want to give you that shot here. 1775 still has some of those starter kits available. You know you're going to get their bold dark roast, their smooth medium roast, and that Vitality mushroom coffee that gives you clean energy and laser focus without the crash. It is all made from the highest quality beans available. Single origin, small batch, both toxin and mold free. You're also going to get some freebies, that gold spoon clip, their strong frother, and a black 1775 tumbler. It's $170 worth of coffee and gear, and it's all yours for only $99. This is for the people who have been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble and wonder if it's actually worth it. It truly is, and to find out for yourself, all you got to do is go to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab that starter kit before they're gone. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something just like Rumble does. Thank you very much once more to Rumble, and thank you to my friends over here on Pilled. First of all, let me say thank you very much to Brewbark, who says, check out Raymond Real Talk on YouTube for all the bullshit going on in California, governor's race, interviews, etc. I will have to look them up. Thank you very much, and that's R-A-M-I-N, Ramin Real Talk. Okay. Filter Dog says Potomac TRACON, the critical radar facility handling all D.C. airspace, evacuated for the second time this month. The FAA has implemented ground stops for flights to Reagan National, Dulles, BWI, Charlottesville, and Richmond airports. That's interesting. I'll have to check out and see what happens. Filter Dog also says, same reason as earlier in March, strong chemical odor. Okay, well, thank you very much. I wonder if that has something to do with the shit pipe breaking in the area or if there is something else going on. That's crazy. All right, I'll check it out. All right, and thank you to Surter. If you look, the one sheriff gives a short knee to the kidney after he was stood against the wall. Well, whatever happened, he deserved it. That person deserved it. All right, you guys, I am taking off. I got to get dinner with my lovely wife, and I need to say thank you so much to Lou. Thank you so much to Lou and Kathy for the $10 check we just got in the mail today. I will be live tonight at 10:30 on OnlyLands if you want to join me there, or you can just be here Monday at 5 p.m. for another episode of Red Pill News Live. Please don't hesitate to check out the other sponsors of the program in the description below. Tallow Products, all natural from my friend Jessica at goallgood.com/RP78 or RedPill78. B17 products, Laetrile B17 over at rncstore.com/RedPill78. ConsciousStrength.net/RP78 for a host of natural products, including my favorite methylene blue, which I take on a daily basis. And of course, my good friend Mike Lindell at MyPillow.com. Use the code RP78 and save up to 80% off of Mike Lindell's amazing American-made products for your bedroom, your bathroom, kitchen, and so much more, and help him to become the next governor of the state of Minnesota. All right, you guys, good luck, God bless, and I will see you on the next one. Oh, thank you to Freya and boys. That can't hurt anymore. She got the pegging the night before. See you guys.